4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So I would like to go ahead and call to order and this regular meeting of the Sonoma City Council on Monday, June 1st, 2020. Let's go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Got the flag. Beautiful. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of
the United States of America, to the republic
for which it stands,
stands one
nation,
under God,
God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, great. As we're going on with this meeting, just kind of want to do an overview of how public comment is going to work. Public comment will work in one of two ways. We have virtual public comment. So those of you, I see 18, 19, 20 now. It's counting up attendees of our Zoom meeting. If you'd like to make a verbal public comment, you may raise your hand. Don't do it physically. We cannot see you, but please do it through the Zoom app. Raise your hand, we'll call on you, and you will get 3 minutes to speak with us, and we will listen to your public comment. In addition, if you are calling in on the phone, you can raise your hand by dialing *9, and we will hear your comment that way as well. If you prefer to write a written comment, we will read it aloud. The written comments are accepted from the beginning of the meeting, which has already happened, until the end of the public comment period. Email submissions may be sent to publiccomment@sonomacity.org. Again, publiccomment@sonomacity.org. Send us an email comment and we'll go ahead and read it there. And that will also receive a 3-minute time limit. But Latani's a relatively fast reader, so we can get through a fair amount of your public comment as we go along. Because this is a virtual meeting, we are at risk of getting what's called Zoom bound, which is a new term for the year 2020. If this does happen and there's a takeover of the stream, we will shut down the stream and try to restart it. No further action will be taken when the stream is shut down. And if the meeting will be considered paused at that point and then restarted when the meeting restarts. If we are unable to restart the stream, then we will consider the meeting closed and have to start again at a later date. Again, no action will be taken off camera. Everything will be done in the public eye in accordance with the Brown Act. And we are having this virtual meeting in accordance with the governor's order regarding allowing virtual meetings under the Brown Act. Great, I think that covers most of it. We're going to go ahead and go on to report on closed session. We don't have that. Approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So move. Madeline.
Second? No second?
Second.
Okay. If we could have a roll call vote, please, Rebecca. Oh, we need to have we also need to have just a roll call as well. So let's do the roll call and then the roll call vote if we could.
Okay, so this is for just the roll call for the meeting. Councilmember Agramonte.
Here.
Councilmember Cook.
Here.
Vice Mayor Henley.
Here.
Councilmember Harrington.
Present.
Mayor Harvey.
Present. Great. And the roll call vote?
Yes. For the motion, we had the motion on the approval of the agenda. Councilmember Agramonte.
Aye.
Councilmember Cook.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Henley.
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington.
Aye.
Mayor Harvey.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Great. Great. Excellent. We're going to go ahead and move on to comments from the public. We could go ahead and have comments, or do we have meeting dedications? Do we have any, or do comments
for me?
First? You don't? Okay, great. Let's go ahead and have comments from the public. So if you have public comment, those are for items not appearing on the agenda. So if you have a comment on one of the agenda items, please save it till that item comes up. None of the comments that basically I'll read the thing. This time we'll take public comment for any item not appearing on the agenda. It is recommended to keep your comments under 3 minutes or less. Under state law, unless otherwise permitted under the Ralph M. Brown Act, the merits of matters presented under this item cannot be discussed or acted upon by the city council at this time. For items appearing on the agenda, please wait for that. Upon being acknowledged by the mayor, if you raise your hand in the Zoom chat, you'll have 3 minutes to make your comment. So if we have any public comment on items not on the agenda, I would appreciate you raising your hand. Public comment is open.
While we're waiting, I do have an email public comment for items not on the agenda, Mayor.
Oh, thank you, Latanya. Please read it.
This is from Tom Conlon. On 4/20/2020, the City Council voted to make a recommendation to Caltrans on how to restripe Broadway after resurfacing is completed. A review of the video will confirm that Council's decision was based on 2 interdependent votes, a primary recommendation and a conditional backup recommendation. As explained in the recording and confirmed in the notice on the city's website, this second decision was intended to take effect only if the primary recommendation was determined to be infeasible by the traffic engineers or Caltrans. However, on 5/18, the City Council took an extraordinary action to suspend its rules of procedure and then repealed its earlier 2-point decision according to the agenda item 6.2 summary. However, the Council made no decision to make a substitute recommendation to Caltrans. In introducing the matter, the city manager reiterated that the last motion was depending on if the compromise solution was not agreed to by Caltrans. There was a motion, a backup, or if not technically feasible. Later, the city manager confirmed that the compromise had been a feasible solution and the information was put up on our website. Mayor Harvey attempted to make a motion to provide a new recommendation to Caltrans, but the city attorney said this would not be allowed, directly contradicting the written instructions cited above. Councilmember Hunley stated, "Nothing is better than something," and this appeared to be the Councilmember Agramonte's understanding as well. Subsequently, city staff overstepped its authority and communicated to Caltrans its own recommendation to retain the existing lane configuration. Personal communication, Betsy Joseph, District 4 Project Manager on 5/22/20. Staff did this despite the facts that 1, the city's general plan calls for a 3-lane road diet for this segment of Broadway. 2, the city council has issued no findings to justify overruling its general plan regarding this matter. And 3, the council explicitly rescinded its earlier discretionary decision to make any recommendation to Caltrans. Therefore, I respectfully request that the council instruct the city manager to contact Caltrans and update the city website as soon as possible to correct the factual record and confirm that to date, the Sonoma City Council has made no duty authorized recommendation to Caltrans on restriping Broadway. And in the absence of any new discretionary action by the council, Caltrans should recognize the city's adopted general plan circulation element to contain its latest guidance for the restriping of Broadway. Failure to resolve this matter quickly could result in otherwise unnecessary legal action and delay in the long anticipated resurfacing of Highway 12. Thank you for your consideration of my comments. Tom Conlon.
Thank you, Tom. I'm seeing nobody raise their hand in the chat. Oh, we got Orlando Rodriguez. It's our police chief.
Go ahead, Orlando.
Good evening, Mayor and council members and city staff. I just wanted to join you guys tonight to provide clarity for the public regarding enforcement of the public health orders and the protests happening throughout our nation and California. As you know, the Sonoma Police Department will continue to follow the county health order and the Sonoma County's health officers' orders. What that means to all of us means that we're going to educate, we're going to warn, and we're going to cite if necessary. We're going to work with code enforcement, with the Chamber of Commerce, and with the community partners. We will continue to work. I will continue to work, and our deputies will continue to work at the direction of the city council and the city mayor and the city manager. My direction to my officers are to educate, warn, and cite. We will hold people accountable, as this is what is expected from our residents and business owners, because they look upon us to do the right thing and to have the orders fairly and consistently enforced. So I am definitely looking for our business owners and our community to please come together so we can follow these orders and keep the health and safety of our community safe. Also, I want to bring, of course, the things that have been happening around our country and here in California. First of all, my thoughts and prayers are and have been with the George Floyd family. When I saw the video, I was outraged and saddened by the death of Mr. Floyd at the hands of the Minneapolis officer and the inaction of other officers. I see the frustration in our communities because I am frustrated also. My organization and I condemn the actions of those officers because those actions go against our mission and core values of our office. It also goes against our training, tactics, and professionalism, which our deputies provide to our community. This is why I support the steps that have been taken to hold those officers accountable. It is clear that the First Amendment protects individuals' rights to peacefully assemble and speak. As chief, I want to ensure a safe environment for the protesters and the community. Our officers have regular de-escalation training and crisis intervention training. We are trained to recognize odd behavior due to drug, alcohol, or mental illness. Our officers wear body cameras, and all critical incidents are reviewed strictly, and the footage is released through our incident review protocols. We consistently train, and we want to ensure that we will police with respect and safety and professionalism. I believe that the Sonoma Police Department and the Valley Substation deputies have built trust in our community here in the city of Sonoma, in the Valley, with a compassionate style of policing. I am counting on our community support of our deputies so we can continue to work together and continue to earn each other's trust, respect, and confidence. I commit to our community that we will continue to serve you as I want myself, my family, my friends to be treated with respect, dignity, and professionalism. I also commit to you to be available and reach out and work together on these issues of race and trust. And thank you again, Mayor and council members, for having me tonight and letting me speak out tonight.
Thank you, Chief Orlando, for your words and your sentiments. It's nice to hear a review of the different policies that we have in place here in Sonoma and in Sonoma County regarding this. And I thank you for coming on to talk to us. I greatly appreciate all your work. Do we have another public commenter? Great. So we'll go ahead and close public comment. I thought it would be a good idea tonight to have a moment of silence. The death of George Floyd has rocked our broader community, the nation, and a lot of people are feeling a lot of pain regarding this murder. And I think it's important that we recognize it and honor not only this death, but a number of other unfortunate tragedies that have happened in the same vein throughout our community, with poor practices of policing that we've seen over the past few years. So I think having a moment of silence to honor this passing and to honor the unrest that is happening and the real pain and justified outrage that we see throughout the country, I think it would be appropriate to have a moment of silence. So if the council pleases, I'd like to honor that with a 30-second moment of silence. Thank you. Great. With that, we'll move on to consent calendar. Or do we? Yeah, we have no presentations, no meeting dedications. The consent calendar, all items listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be acted upon by motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless members of council, staff, or public require items to be removed for separate action. At this time, council may decide to change the order of the agenda. Do we have any requests to change the order of the agenda? I'm going to go ahead and recuse myself on item 3, just because I work for direct competitor of Sonoma Garbage, and just so in the abundance of ethics, worrying about that, I'd like to just recuse myself from item 4.3. So when I vote, I'll be only voting on item 4.1 and 4.2. 1.2, then do a third one on 4.3.
One motion can be made to approve them all. It will be noted that you're recusing yourself on 4.3. It does not need to be taken separately.
All right. Great. Do
Move
you have
to
a motion to approve the consent council? Madeline moving to.
You go to public comment.
You got to go to public comment.
Oh yeah, we got a public comment on the consent calendar. Do we have public comment on the consent calendar? Comment is open. Seeing none, I'll go ahead and bring it back to council. And we got a motion, Madeline.
Move to approve.
All right, second.
Second. Oh, wait, did you do something?
Councilmember Agramonte,
Aye.
Councilmember Cook,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hunley,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington.
Aye.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion.
All right, great. Item number 5.1, discuss, consider, and possibly take action to introduce an ordinance amending Sonoma Municipal Code to amend section 9.56.02 and add sections 9.56.050H and 9.56.070L, which regulate use generators and the associated noise impacts during power outages and emergencies. City Manager, Kathy Caprico.
Thank you, Mayor Harvey, members of the council. Council, if you recall, I think in January or February, we had a brief conversation about this and whether to bring forward an ordinance. You were supportive. And so I want to thank David Storr, our planning director, and Wayne Wyrick, our development services director, who worked on this to bring this forward along with legal staff. So I'll turn it to David Storr to provide you a brief update.
Uh-oh.
Here we go.
David?
And that concludes my presentation. Just kidding. Hang on, I'm going to try to figure out how to get the video going. Bear with, please. There we go. As Kathy mentioned, this is an ordinance that's being recommended for your council to address emergency generators that have been and are being used or will be used in the future when we have another PSPS through PG&E. We do know that there's going to be an ongoing need for these, and generators are going to be used throughout the city, whether it's residential or commercial. We have no guarantees that where the geography will be affected, but clearly we know that people are using generators. We didn't receive, that I recall, any complaints, and Wayne could perhaps mention that if he knows of any. We do know that the municipal code that we have present has strict provisions in the code where we talk about the noise limits, the maximums that can occur in residential and non-residential zones during the daytime and during the nighttime. We know that the future use of emergency generators may not be in compliance, and as a result, they may be a threat to the public health. And so what we've done is to address possible prolonged periods of time and the geography, we've presented some changes to our municipal code where we've relaxed the standard, or in other words, increased the limits by 5 decibels. You can see on page 2 that of the staff report that we've provided a table there that would be modified that would show these increases. Would also need to show that to amend the typographical errors in that table of table 1, where we noticed that there were some issues relating to the original ordinance that was adopted in 2006. We're going to clean those up too. The proposed ordinance also allows for the city manager to make exceptions for essential activities relating to emergency work and services. This would be your first reading this evening. A second reading could occur on June the 15th, and then 30 days thereafter on July 15th, the ordinance would be effective, and we hope that ordinance will never have to be implemented so that we don't, in other words, there would be a PSPS that would need us to use it. But these are the changes that staff recommends, and we recommend the council adopt the ordinance tonight. This concludes staff's presentation.
And Mayor Harvey, maybe if I can just add one thing also. As council knows, we had back in October, we had one very widespread 3-day PSPS throughout most of the city and most of the valley down. The next 4 within the city limits, there's only about 100 accounts, primarily up by the police station. There's like 2 roads that there's about 100 accounts. So I would argue 98% of the city, it will generally be electrified. However, if broader transmission lines come down, which could, that would then when these generators to be important. So just want to, there's always this question and concern from the public about what does that mean? We continue to be hopeful that going forward to this fall that we won't have that many shutoffs here in the city. But again, for large businesses and folks that may have medical conditions or need to have that extra protection and be able to rely, folks are putting this in. So we want to make sure that we're balancing that need with also kind of neighborhood and sound issues. So with that, I'll turn it back to the mayor. Thank you.
Do we have questions from council? So I have a question. So is there a time limit as far as when you need to shut your generator off?
There is not, no, but the point is that during the nighttime, you are required to meet those limits. So for example, in the nighttime, there's a constant limit over a prolonged period of time of 40 decibels, which is basically not much more than 2 people having a conversation next to each other. In fact, it's pretty quiet. So we've increased it to 45, but that's still generally a conversation of 2 people, 2 to 3 feet away from one another.
So is that loud enough to allow somebody to run their generator at night? I mean, or could we put in an exemption for people that have medical devices?
Well, we have got that discretion in there to the city manager to be able to deal with public health and safety issues. And that would be the exception I think you're talking about.
Yeah, I just think that's really crucial. And I think, maybe if there was something for people to run extremely hot days, to be able to run air conditioning, but you may need to require a pretty large generator to run an air conditioner as well.
Mayor, you can look at the penultimate page on the ordinance, section 9.56070L states, the new ordinance will state backup emergency generators required to carry out essential emergency services or are otherwise necessary to protect the life, health, and safety as determined by the city manager or the city's director of emergency services. I think that gives that discretion.
Okay.
So what's the procedure for that? Is there like a permit someone gets, or they just have to get?
No, there is no permit that we've created in the ordinance. We don't actually have any permit process in the noise process. There are exemptions, and I think that's what this is intended to be, as an exemption.
Okay.
And Mr. Mayor, if I can just remind the council, in your motion, if you can add the ability for staff to amend table 1 as we've outlined on page 2 of the staff report to include these 5 decibel increases and then the type of typos that we found. That would be appreciated.
This is Jeff Walter. You mean the tables are already in the ordinance and they need to be amended?
Yes, that this is all part of 9.56. Wayne noticed that there was an error from 2006 that was transposed incorrectly, and it was presented to the council incorrectly.
Well, it's not in the ordinance. It's before the council, that change. So how do you want to handle this? This can either be the introduction can be deferred until the next council meeting where we can put it up for reintroduction with that amendment contained within the ordinance itself. Or we could introduce the ordinance tonight and then come back with a different amendment at a subsequent meeting that would address the tables. But you just can't by motion amend an existing portion of the municipal code. That has to be in a written document.
So Jeff, we've placed that particular amendment on page 2 of the staff report where we've shown in strikeout language the change with the additional increases in the 5 decibels. Would it be possible to act on a motion to include that in the ordinance?
Let's see, where is it? Page 2.
Go to page 2, you'll see the existing code with the errors. And then on the 3rd page, you'll see that we've included the changes that were in strikeout and also increased the 5 decibels. It would be the new table 1.
The new table 1 is on the top of page 3.
Correct.
Actually,
Okay.
just a point of clarification, on the top of page 3, that should not be the new table. That table is only pertinent to the increases that would be allowed under this the PSPS conditions. So there still needs to be a table 1 to handle normal conditions, and that table 1 needs to be corrected. So I would recommend that we come back with a modified ordinance that corrects these issues and takes care of it at the next regular meeting.
I would agree.
So was the error is an old error that's just existing? Couldn't you just call it a Scrivener's error and fix it on your own?
Well, that was my original thought, but it sounds like from council that we need to come back at a second time to change it. Yes, I checked the 2006 version, and it is as we presented it, and it shouldn't have said the word intermittent and constant in the place we provided, and we did do that correction on page 2.
From how I interpret Wayne's comments, however, is that he's suggesting that we need two new tables included in the ordinance, not only the one that corrects the Scrivener's error, but on the top of page 3, a new table to be inserted in the ordinance that identifies the higher levels that are allowed for the generators. So let's do it clean so we have a clear understanding of exactly what the council's introducing and adopting. So again, we would recommend this. We'll bring this back at an earliest time we can with the appropriate tables embedded into the ordinance itself.
Just for point of clarification for David here, I wasn't aware that we're going to be doing 2 tables. I thought it was just the one. Wayne, is that your understanding? That there would be one table number 1?
Yeah, I think that's where some of the confusion lies, David, is that the table on top of page 3 is really intended to show what those values would be, but that table is not necessary in the ordinance because the language of the ordinance describes how the decibels as the A-weighted decibels would be increased. So table 1 Scrivener's errors that are in table 1 need to be corrected. Once that's done, the rest of the ordinance can stand as is, and no second table is not required.
So staff, I recommend that I agree with Jeff at this point. There's just enough clarification and question here. We'll bring it back on next meeting, make sure that it's clean and move it forward. Okay, so we will, apologies, council. It's always the devil in the details. So we will clean this up and bring it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Any other questions of council? Nope.
So does that mean we're not going to do this at all? So we're just going to.
Gonna do.
Yeah.
Okay. We still do public comment then. So I'll go ahead and bring it out.
I don't, Mayor
You
Harvey,
don't
I
need
think,
to?
well, Jeff, I'd look to Jeff. The question is, if we're going to bring it back, should we just wait? Or if members
I
are
recommend
here
that
for
you
it now?
invite public comment on the issue of continuing this matter to a future date. If people have comment on continuing it, then they certainly can, and that's appropriate to solicit that public comment at the present time.
Okay. So I'll open the floor for public comment on continuing this item to a new date. Seeing no one rise, we'll go ahead and bring it back to council. Thank you. All right. On to item 6.1, first agenda item of the regular calendar. Discuss consideration and possible action to direct staff to prepare a resolution approving a ballot measure text to be submitted to the voters of city to continue growth.
Mayor Harvey, I'll open and then turn to Plain Director David Storr. So as council knows, this has been a project that's been, I think we started last fall. Council had a couple of conversations last fall, and then the end of January where you had a joint kind of town hall meeting joint with the Planning Commission. And then you appointed a subcommittee that met and provided additional feedback and worked with 2 members of the Planning Commission. I'll turn it to David Storr to go through the process and update in greater detail. The goal here is to get to a point to put something on the ballot for November. And I'll turn it to David Storr. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Harvey, council members. The current general plan has an implementation measure, 1.5.1, and that basically creates and establishes the UGB that was put in the measure in the 2000 Measure S. The new measure would change the voting structure by continuing, if you will, the ability of the voters or city council to change that structure out to 2040. So basically, this ordinance will place a new 20-year timeline, and it will also give the voters the ability to change the ordinance beyond that date, and still have the ability of the council beyond that date to make changes to the UGB. The council may recall that you held a joint planning commission and city council meeting on January 27th. Shortly after that, the council created the ad hoc UGB composed of Vice Mayor Hundley and Councilmember Cook. Shortly after staff had prepared a draft of the UGB, it met with the ad hoc and also invited members Larry Barnett and Steve Barbos to assist in the review of that document. Subsequent to that review, it was placed on the city's website for 3 weeks from April 24th to May 15th. And we did receive input during that time period from about 20 individuals or groups, if you will. And in the last couple of days, we've received a few more. In the staff report, without going through each of the details there were 4 main topics that were discussed. Number one, very broad and consensus that the UGB does need to be extended or continued for another 20 years. There was discussion on either side of the aisle regarding the calculation of the 5 acres within the 1 year, whether it's net or gross. No comments really came in with respect to the limit of the 20 acres over the 5 years. And third, there was a desire for some and not for others to have a finding regarding the availability of land, whether it's vacant or reusable land, repurposed land, if you will, within the city before you start going to look beyond the UGB to include more land in the UGB. And the last comment was that there would be a 4/5 vote voting structure. Again, some people for it, some people against, as you go through those pieces of public correspondence that we received. Tonight, we're asking for direction from your council to prepare a resolution and to return on June 29th for adoption, such that we can have it prepared for the November election. This concludes staff's report.
Oops, sorry. Do we have any questions of
Mayor
council?
Harvey?
Sorry, I was trying to jump in. Do you have any questions from council regarding this?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, good.
I reviewed the meeting and it looked to me like we had a majority of council vote in favor of 5-year gross, not net. And I sent that to the city attorney and Kathy today. So I'm wondering where the question of getting back to net, because we had a robust discussion at the joint meeting on that topic. So I'm wondering, is there disagreement about that fact?
So there was definitely, council members gave feedback, and I've not had a chance to kind of go back and listen. I do know the net, there was a conversation, part of my notes from that meeting, Councilmember Harrington showed there was definitely a lack of comfort of kind of streets and some of that stuff being caught within the net. But the net piece, my understanding is that, again, there may have been discussions with the subcommittee, so I'll let the planning director kind of speak to that as well.
I guess I rewatched it. That's
Yeah, I appreciate that.
not how I interpreted it. There was a vote on a number of items, numbered items, and each one of us went and said on item 1, this is what I think. On item 2, this is what I think. So it was a very clear straw poll. And I don't know why the subcommittee would go any other direction than trying to write up what the explicit direction was.
If I can just make a quick comment about that, my recollection of there was a discussion and then there was also a recap by the mayor right before the close of the meeting. But I know that the conversation about the use of some portions of a property versus not, you may recall that there was a member of the public that had spoken about a 6-acre parcel on the south side of Napa Road, where 6 of it was gross, but only 5 of it was net because of a riparian habitat or a creek that went through it. And I think the general concern was, let's eliminate a natural resource or hazardous waste site or something that was definitely out of bounds, but do not support the exclusion of setbacks or the inclusion of setbacks in that calculation. So your traditional setbacks, front, rear, side, whatever, or rear, those are setbacks, and those are to be included in the gross, not to be pulled away. And so
we had that discussion, and then we had an explicit discussion that said we don't want 20 acres developed in 1 year, which would be possible if you did like 2 acres per parcel over 4 parcels. So I just want to say I rewatched the tape today. It was super explicit. And when I saw contrary direction come back, I asked that the city attorney and city manager rewatch the tape. I watched quite a bit of it to find the exact moment in the meeting when the votes were taken. And I understand that people are saying what they think happened, but my memory was pretty explicit about what happened, which is why I rewatched the tape today. I suppose we can vote on it and we don't require further discussion, but I'm irritated that we spent all that time at that meeting and whoever takes notes did not pass on the notes about what happened or watch the tape again. That's it. Anyway.
I'm going to respond to that because I did watch the video today, and the last 3 minutes were taken up by Mayor Harvey, who did a recap of all of the actions. And at the last 3 minutes, notwithstanding the discussion by the council members present and also the planning commissioners, his summation was such that he recapped that there was broad consensus, to quote, for the 20-year extension and broad approval or discretion for the flexibility for the 5 acres. And so that's the direction that I took to the ad hoc, and we discussed that very point.
Right, but the mayor is one vote, and those were his opinions, and everyone else gave an explicit vote point by point. And although the mayor summarized it, I disagree with the summary that that was correct. And so you're saying the mayor said it and therefore we did it, but the mayor is one vote of 5. And I suppose we'll have to have the discussion again today, because what you came back with is not what the majority voted at that time. Although it is correct that on the tape, which I watched today, the mayor summarized it saying basically his vote. So if that's what happened, is that you took the mayor's summary and did that, okay.
So the only thing I'll say to this point, council, we are where we are, and this is one of the policy issues. You appointed a subcommittee that staff worked with as well, and 2 members of the planning commission that reviewed the drafts that were put back out. And this is, you know, again, it's an iterative process. You're welcome. We'll take whatever final direction that the council gives us tonight.
We had also the idea of 6 acres instead of 5, but we weren't sure how CEQA would work out. But I think, I think when it comes to discussion, that that point, if problematic, could be changed.
And again, one of the comments we received in the 20 letters that we received was it was a 50-50 split, I believe, with respect to people wanting the 5 acres to be net or to be gross. And as I mentioned previously, there was no discussion about the 20 acres. But to be sure, we did talk in vague terms about the implications of CEQA, not only at the joint meeting, but also in the ad hoc subcommittee group. So there's certainly room for the interpretation of how that's calculated.
Quick question: as the measure is currently written, would it allow for a broad variety of small parcels? Could you bring in 10 2-acre parcels and bring in 20 acres in 1 year?
It seems that you can only bring in a total of 5 acres in any 1 year. The question is, when do you say that year has begun? For example, somebody may want to bring in 3 acres 1 year and 3 acres the next calendar year. Well, is that 2 3 acres, or is it 1 6-acre piece of the same property? There is not a lot of good language in there to help give that direction.
But I think the other question is, if I have a riparian habitat on my land that's undevelopable, and that is 2/3 of my parcel, and now I build 25 units on it, does only the portion that is 25 units count, or does the entire parcel of, like the APN, does that count? And that is a robust discussion we had, because under that scenario, if only the developed portion counts, then you could develop a lot of parcels with only developing whatever the developable portion was. So then you could develop 20 acres in 1 year if you only counted the 2 acres that was developable.
Yeah, it says here on.
But only if you had properties that had. I mean, you'd have to have properties that had basically 6 acres of undevelopable land and 2 acres of developable land, because you can only develop 5.
But I'm saying the exception isn't if your land is only partially developable. It's if I do 1 acre on this parcel and 1 acre on that parcel and 1 acre on that parcel, then now it's 3 acres, but it's 3 parcels also.
You could bring in 3 parcels, but you couldn't develop 20 acres in a year. That would be impossible.
Right, but the development of parcels is part of what the UGB is designed to prevent. We don't want a lot of parcels developed outside of town.
Could we limit based on number of physical properties or lot lines?
The goal is to, under the CEQA umbrella here, to do as little significant changing to the existing UGB as possible, because the more you change the existing UGB that may cause physical impacts, the more likely it is you need to conduct environmental review, a significant environmental review. And we only have 2 months. In order for this item to be placed before the voters in November, it has to go to the county by early August.
I think we should just get a discussion and see. There might be a consensus just for having 5 acres flat. And my question is to Jeff: is that an easy change that we can make tonight?
Oh, sure. Tonight it's just actually tonight it's open-ended, because if there's no formal document that you're being asked to approve, you are being asked to give us direction, and we'll come back then with the resolution not dissimilar to the item dealing with the cannabis business tax. That item is teed up for you to adopt tonight, and it would then go to the county to place that particular ordinance on the ballot in November. There's a resolution, there's an ordinance ready to go. That is what tonight is an introduction to. This is a preparatory step that would lead then to the development of the documents that look a lot like the tax measure that's later on the agenda. So yes, tonight's it's open-ended. You can tell us what you'd like to see in this particular ordinance, and we'll bring that back in final form to you within the next, hopefully, 4 weeks.
Yeah, I think, Jeff, I've scheduled June 29th, but certainly we could go into July, but I think we're going to be a little bit skinny in July on the meetings, I believe.
Okay.
Is it possible for a 6-acre parcel that has, basically any 6-acre parcel, can you bring in 5 acres the first year, 1 acre the next?
Well, this ordinance actually says that you can, I think. It doesn't expressly say that, but it says that you can only bring in 5 acres within any calendar year. And I'll find that for you in the ordinance.
Yes, it's currently written. It reads that in determining how much acreage any single development proposal encompasses for purposes of this UGB, the total acreage specified in the development application shall control. And then it goes on to say that in the draft that's before you, that you ignore and exclude riparian corridors, et cetera, et cetera. And that's the language that's really at issue in this particular discussion. But if you have a 6-acre parcel and you're coming in to apply for an amendment to the UGB, the only way that you can split that up is to seek a subdivision approval that would split off 1 acre. But your application would actually encompass all 6 acres. And thus that particular application could not be approved under the UGB as currently drafted, and in my view, under the UGB that's in place today. You take a look at the entire acreage encompassed by the application, and that controls. And if it's more than 5 acres, if we're using the gross concept right now, we're not including any analysis of riparian right-of-ways and the like, a 6-acre proposal that even attempts to split off 1 acre still is a 6-acre proposal because it requires a subdivision to allow that to happen. So that wouldn't be permitted.
Could you bring that property in over the course of 2 years, or just you can never bring in a property that is larger than 6 acres? Larger than
5.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you have access to a 10-acre parcel, you can't apply because the lot is larger.
Correct.
But whatever year you actually bring it in, you're bringing in the whole 6, not I'm bringing in 5 the first year and 1 the next year. You can't
Correct.
get that back. So,
And that's why at our meeting, we talked about allowing more than 5 acres a year, but capping it at 20 for the term. That was the flexibility that we actually discussed, which was allowing more than 5 acres in 1 year, but not more than 20 in the total period, but using the gross acreage, not some kind of net.
okay.
Which ran into CEQA problems. So that someone couldn't get it split with county first. Yeah.
Interesting question. Could they split it at the county? I guess they could. They could. If they split it at the county and they got the permission to split it at the county, that might work. Now, if we had a sphere of influence that went beyond our UGB, we would have strong advisory influence on that question. But our sphere of influence does not extend beyond, in many instances, beyond our UGB, and it's unclear what relationship we have with the county when it's presented with a proposal of the sort we're currently hypothesizing. But yes, the county has ultimate say-so on a piece of parcel. It's a good point. Beyond the city's UGB and its current boundary, the county would decide whether to split that parcel such that it reduced each of the pieces to 5 acres or less.
I mean, my memory was one of the goals of this was to make it easier or streamline or whatever adjective you want to use or whatever you want to use to discuss how we would bring in parcels outside the UGB specifically for affordable housing. And we wanted to make sure also that we protected the UGB from, just a huge cadre of affordable housing being brought in. We didn't want to make it too loose and we didn't want to make it too restrictive, and trying to find that balance. So what I feel like I'm hearing, and just correct me if I'm wrong, is that we can't do what we discussed at the meeting, which was to say, at the joint meeting, which was to say, we're going to bring in more than 5 acres with a cap of 20 over the 20-year period. But you could bring in a 6-acre parcel. That runs into CEQA issues because we're bringing in more than 5 per year. Is that the case?
That's correct.
What is the CEQA issue? I don't remember that.
That we're
The
going
CEQA
over
issues-
5 per year.
What is it?
Sorry.
The CEQA issue is, right now, the ordinance UGB that's in effect today does exactly what you just described and what Councilmember Harrington described. It caps the total amount of land that can be added over a 20-year period to 20 acres. And also caps the per year increase to 5 acres. If you allow that cap per year, for example, to go higher than 5 acres, then you need to analyze the physical impacts that additional development may have on the city if you're allowing development to be occurring at an accelerated rate above and beyond that which is currently allowed under the current UGB. That's the CEQA issue.
So basically, we should have done an EIR if we wanted that.
Yeah,
But
whatever the initial study indicated was necessary, yes.
And the whole point of this process was that we didn't have the time to do an EIR or the money, frankly.
We did. We set aside $100,000.
Well, my understanding was it was going to cost more than that, but
It's a
but we
timing
didn't-
problem. We started too late.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was primarily timing.
All right. So now we're in a situation where, just correct me if I'm wrong, we're in a situation where the property that kind of was the center of this discussion could never be brought within the UGB.
Under the current UGB, that's true.
And under this proposal, we couldn't bring it in either.
Maybe, meaning if the council went along with the recommendations before you tonight, which has some potential CEQA problems on its own, grant you that. But if the proposal tonight was that which the council adheres to and supports, you do not include in that 5-acre calculation land that cannot be developed due to riparian corridors, hazardous waste, or other natural resource problems. So I don't know whether that 6-acre parcel that the Habitat was looking at actually would net out at 5 acres. I don't really know that. I think that most of us were thinking that it did. That was the assumption that some people were making, but I do not know if that's true or not.
I can add to that. The representation made to me was that there would be if there was a problem with the literal interpretation of the 5 acres, Habitat was going to do a subdivision to parcel off the 1 acre. But I believe that was not a possibility with the then property owner in their discussions.
Well, I'd be interested perhaps as a part of this, talking to the county, since we all have aligned policies about affordable housing development, and see what it's like on that side. If they could do something that would facilitate if a project came that would have to go through some phased thing. So, but it's probably more for discussion.
All right, let's go ahead and bring it to public comment. Go ahead and open the public comment. Terry Shore, no shock here. First at the bit.
Hi, good evening, Mayor Harvey, City Council members, staff, and members of the public. Yes, I had my little arrow just ready to hit my raise hand. So I really appreciate all the time and discussion by everyone involved. I think it's been a really valuable and healthy discussion. Greenbelt Alliance supports the 20-year renewal with the existing boundary and the stronger affordable housing standards for exemptions at 100% affordable with 50%, 51% low and very low, and for the new for sale provision for lower and moderate income people. I think those are really great improvements to the UGB that could be a model for other cities. We also recommend the 4/5 vote of the entire council be required to make amendments to the UGB without a vote of the people, since everything else has to be a vote of the people. And then we did send a letter in with the citizens for the UGB with a number of comments. But the primary sticking point from our perspective that could be a problem for the city is the net 5 acre per year exemption. We believe that the gross 5 acre per year for a total of 20 gross acres over 20 years is the way to go, because the net acre is really going to create more confusion rather than clarity and trigger several policy and legal inconsistencies. The reality is that it allows more than 5 acres per year to come in to the city. And so even using that language could trigger CEQA. It's inconsistent with the development code, which defines a lot or parcel by total acreage, not net acreage, and that's in the city and county development code. It's inconsistent with LAFCO and the Cortese-Knox Act. And I realize, David, for your benefit, that there is quite a difference between the sphere of influence LAFCO and a city approved voter UGB. But if you vote or the city council allows land to come into the city, you cannot develop that land without annexing it and extending water and sewer through LAFCO. So when LAFCO looks at a parcel, they will be looking at 5 acres. You might count it as 3 acres, but 5 acres is 5 acres. So you have an inconsistency between the city and LAFCO, which could be problematic for you in the future. And it's inconsistent with direction given to staff at the January 27th, 2020 meeting. It's inconsistent with city, county, and other planning and development practices, which evaluate development applications and zoning requirements based on total acreage. I've never seen any, city or development allow this. So it could potentially set a new precedent for development in the entire city of Sonoma, because it will be added to the general plan that is not consistent with best practices and could open to the door for other developers within or outside of the city to take advantage of this net acreage. And there could be a number of unintended consequences related to that. I'm also suggesting that you might want to think further about writing a 20-year UGB policy for one property, one parcel that may or may not get developed, that has to go through an EIR and may or may not even fit this description. So those are my comments, and I really appreciate you revisiting this whole issue. I'm probably getting close to my time. If you would also consider putting in the 20 years. Are you going like this to me?
That's fine. Sorry.
I'm there? Okay.
Thank you. Whoever's typing furiously, if you could, there you go, Kathy. Thank you. We go ahead, and so we've got Nancy Kirwan.
Nancy Kerwin, or Logan.
Yeah, go right ahead, Nancy.
I agree with what Terry said, but I sent a letter, and I'm not going to repeat everything I said in it, but I had the similar reaction to Amy when I read the wording, which was that, wow, that's not what was agreed to at that meeting at all. I did not have a chance to go back and look at the video, however, so I can't substantiate my position, except that I agree with her. I'm concerned about changing the definition of what a 5-acre lot means, what those words mean. I'm concerned that, as Terry said, there would be unintended consequences where you get unknown, unplanned for, and potentially much larger expansion of developable land that's exempt from the UGB. And I agree with the 4/5 vote requirement when you're making an exemption without something voted for by the people, when you're not going back to them to change it. And that's all I'm going to say. Thank you all for putting all this time and effort into this. And I know you all have a lot of other things on your plate. So thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Two emails I'm seeing from Latanya. I don't see anybody else raising their hand for public. Go ahead.
Do you want me to go ahead and read or we have 3 hands raised now.
Let's take the hands and
Okay.
then read, if that's okay.
Yep.
Jack, go right ahead.
Oh, yes. Hi, Mayor Harvey and council member. Thank you so much. This is a very, very difficult to understand and technical questions. Thank you. Spend so much time. And for me, I spend days and days finally understand. And also I appreciate due diligence like the Harrington did, go back, watch the TV. That is really, really, not an easy work. So that is for our next generation. It's not for the time being. So today I just want to review the big picture. So I like to look at it, this project 20 years ago. 20 years ago, it was so much difficult to move forward UGB in Sonoma. At that time, only Larry Barnett and Ken Brown, 2 of the city council members, supported the UGB. They engaged in debates, working very hard to educate the people to overcome many objects. Finally, ballot measure was passed with 63.7% of the vote. Larry Barnett and Ken Brown, they still respective on the local leaders, still are very active, and especially for the Larry, still working on UGB. That is fantastic. And also, and it's not easy. Maybe in the next 20 years, I will not come to do this same job. So what I want to say is, history is our future. So this time is a small.
Sorry, 1 minute left.
Carry over and out Sonoma's legacy and people's good wealth and move forward. That we never forgot. And thank you so much for Larry Barnett and Ken Brown and all of you, because you're 5 of the city council members for the support UGB. Thank you.
Thank you. Fred Albach, go ahead.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Hi, I'm Fred Albach. I'm looking back at the consensus of the joint meeting, and I feel like it's kind of a blind man feeling the elephant kind of issue, because I came out of that with a certain feeling, and everyone had a good feeling at the end that, yes, we're going to get something done here, and we're going to work it out. And I think that the Broadway street paving issue shows that a percent of public opinion really does count. And a percent of the public opinion there wanted to have a flexible 5-acre provision. What I want to ask the council is, do you want to get to yes or not on having more affordable housing in Sonoma? And the Habitat for Humanity possible project at 285 Napa Road was the canary in the coal mine that pointed out a lot of the language inconsistency issues that are being discussed here right now. And I looked over those. I went to a local land use attorney and I talked to David Goodison before, and he said that there's no way that those provisions could be satisfied in the old UGB. So that's what this process is really about here. And I think if there's a rules consistency issue here, then it's up to you guys to change the rules now, because that's what this is all about. I'd like to remind you that the Housing Our Community series that the city had came out with a consensus decision of the participants that we wanted 50% deed restricted housing in the next 10 years and to not adhere to a minimum RENA number. So that consensus was that the people who participated in that wanted more deed restricted affordable housing. Amy said earlier, the city doesn't want more affordable housing at the edge, but it has to go somewhere, and the land is too expensive in the city. So the whole point of this is to make it easier to do something on the edge, and I think it's really doubtful that a lot of these will come along, and you got to get them when you can. So my points that I would like to ask the council to consider in the UGB language is, please don't reinsert the vacant land in the city provision. That the clause in there about whether something is reasonably feasible and whether you can do top-down upzoning is highly questionable. The flexible or hard 5 acres, that's the Habitat possible project showed that for the difference of 1 acre, you're not going to get 50 plus units. Like when you're looking at this from a common sense perspective, come on, get that 1 acre thing worked out. I would also encourage you to deny the 4-vote threshold to make changes, because this is a public good. Why would you want to put a blockade in the way of a real public good? I would also ask you to delete the provision that the city not exceed the minimum amount of affordable housing. That seems to me to be a stupid thing to have in there, and no one's talking about it, and I don't understand why. That's an obvious delete. And then also, I would also ask the council to consider to not reinsert any subjective language about small town character, rural character, et cetera, because those are the types of language that the state law is now expressly forbidding in city housing policy. So that concludes my comments, and I'll be glad when this whole UGB thing is over and we can move on to the next big issue here. So thanks very much.
Appreciate it. Dave Ransom.
Thank you. As you know, I live in Santa Rosa and I go to church in Sonoma, and I'm a member of the Sonoma Valley Housing Group. We would like the council to change the UGB ordinance language to make it easier to extend the UGB should a much needed affordable housing project like Habitat come along. We urge you to keep the draft language that allows some flexibility in the 5-acre requirement. We support deleting the language that no existing vacant or undeveloped land be available within the UGB. We wonder why the city would want to do the minimum the state requires in the thick of a bona fide affordable housing crisis. We heard that the council retain the 100% affordable provision, but make it more flexible by balancing the AMI ratio between very low, low, moderate, and above moderate incomes. We support removing the effects language. Sonoma has got tons of character and green space all around. What is really needed is the integration of the working class who serves Sonoma. Well, a minute, I gotta roll this up. In fact, and this is me talking, not the Sonoma Valley Housing Group, what to do about the UG is perhaps the wrong question. The UGB is blind to the fact that more than half the city exists outside the municipal boundaries. It is blind to the fact that the unincorporated area contains the workers that are essential to the life of the city and its economy. It is blind to the fact that these most essential workers are in dire need of affordable housing, with families doubling and tripling up because of high rents and low pay. The UGB is blind to the fact that this has left essential workers and their children with the valley's highest rate of infection from the COVID pandemic. Now, as the disinherited salt of the earth rise in rebellion in the cities, it is not a good time for Sonoma to pull up the drawbridge. Much better to open the door with arms wide. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. I'm seeing no new hands raised for public comment. Do we have additional hands for public comment? Go ahead and Latanya, if you wouldn't mind reading the public comments we've received via email.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Dear
you.
Mayor Harvey and members of the City Council, thank you for holding the joint meeting between the City Council and the Planning Commission in January, and for your intent to place the renewal of the Urban Growth Boundary, UGB, on the November 2020 ballot. The purpose of the UGB, as you know, is to encourage growth within the city limits. Current affordable housing necessities and the financial realities of the city's ability to extend services to the edges of Sonoma mean we must develop more densely within the city limits. That is the kind of development that must be incentivized. and that Sonoma's general plan encourages. And that is why we were perplexed when we read in the proposed UBG ordinance that the language regarding net versus gross lot acreage, which was suggested but rejected at the January joint meeting, had been reinserted into the currently proposed language. As was stated in that January meeting, nowhere else in any of Sonoma's development documents are undevelopable portions of parcels subtracted from the lot area calculations. Why, other than to incentivize larger projects at the edges of the city, would this calculation be used here? We feel like this suggested language will cause a great deal of confusion in development projects going forward. We also feel that it's important to retain the existing UGB's requirement that there is nowhere else to build inside the UGB before development is considered outside it. The ability to develop may not take the form of vacant land within the city, but of underdeveloped lots within our city boundaries, of which there are many along West Napa Street, just to name one area. Paradigms in housing are changing in favor of smaller dwelling spaces, and currently the prospect of an abundance of newly vacant office spaces resulting from the pandemic, which could be converted into housing, is a real possibility. Finally, we feel that development proposed outside of Sonoma's UGB is consequential enough to warrant a 4-5 vote of the City Council. Thank you for taking the time to consider our thoughts. Sincerely, Carol Marcus and Bill Willers. The second, Mayor Harvey and members of the council. I strongly support the renewal of the city's existing UGB for 20 years. I also support the original measures exemptions to encourage affordable housing. They have served us well. However, there is no reason to weaken these existing exemptions with this new staff recommended edits. As called for in our general plan housing element and confirmed in Jim Hyde's workshops, we can easily build all the new affordable housing we need on appropriate parcels downtown, along Broadway, and along West Napa Street. There is no need to sprawl out at the periphery. Please reject staff's edits, especially the aggressive idea that we should weaken the existing 5-acre limit and replace it with an administratively complicated acreage calculation based on a building square footage. Also, the 4-5 majority vote to change the UGB should be maintained. Thank you, Tom Conlon. That's all we have, Mayor Harvey.
Any additional members of the public that would like to comment? Seeing no one raise their hand, I'll go ahead and bring it back to council for discussion. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Let's see where to start. So the discussion in the subcommittee, there was a desire, first a recognition of sort of the box that we're in due to the timing and not being able to do an environmental review that would be, somebody mute their microphone. But there wasn't enough time to do an environmental review for doing something that was new or creative. So we sort of, in light of our discussions at the joint meeting about 6 acres and sort of taking out pieces that have been particularly problematic at that meeting, you know, setbacks, the things that seemed like they were too complicated. The group had settled on this idea of like things that were very clear not counting. But the whole desire was just taking a stuck situation that we were in and a desire to actually try to be as flexible as possible because we wanted it to be more available to build affordable housing. But, you know, looking at it, it was always something that was somewhat novel, and perhaps this is not the kind of place to have that here. I think that if the city was serious about wanting to have a long-term affordable housing strategy and sort of do things in a way that we're going to invite more projects that might need to have more space or something, then, you know, I think that we're gonna have to start earlier and have a strategy, which despite all of our town halls that we have, but we have no long-term strategy. So at this point, the 2 things that came out that were particularly fatal for trying to have anything developed was tying it to arena numbers, which it no longer is, and the thing about the feasibility of whether it could be built inside of the city, because it wasn't defined as to what that meant. So those two barriers, I think, are better than nothing. And I'm hoping on the county side that this could open a conversation about how the county could help work with the city for if there were, properties identified that were larger than 5 acres, that they could help phase them or work with developers to be, so they could be annexed in a way that's compliant with UGB. So I would be fine with changing the 5 acre limitation back to a straight 5 acres. I could see the cause for concern if there was, this hypothetical situation where there was like all this land where only 1 acre was developable, and then, you end up with like a bunch of land, but it still wouldn't be developed because it's not developable. But it's already causing confusion. I think it would certainly cause confusion on the ballot. So I'm fine with making that more certain. And I think that as far as one of the conversations that we have had is that, once the city can come up with a plan as to, where it wants to be 50 years from now and how it wants to truly make an impact on affordable housing, then we have the option of going back to the voters. And I'm committed to doing that. I'm not sure we have a consensus for it, but I think that if we want to truly help our affordable housing crisis, then we have to go into it with a blank slate and willing to do the work that needs to be done, including the environmental review that we did not have to do this time. So given the circumstances that we have and limitations, I do think that this is an improvement than it was before. And and the 5 acre issue, I think is just too confusing, and I would rather that just be straight 5 acres.
Yeah.
Good, Madeline.
So Rachel, when you're saying straight 5 acres, are you saying net or gross, or that's not it?
I always get those words mixed up. So right now as written, it's if like of a bigger parcel that 5 acres are developable, you get the whole thing. Now this would just be 5 acres is 5 acres. And if part of it's not developable, then that's just a part of it. And if it's a property that's bigger than 5 acres, due to the fact that we couldn't go up to 6 and we can't really change that number, my hope is that the county would be more flexible on their end to want to facilitate these things with subdivisions.
Okay, thank you.
Amy, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So I support 5 acres gross. I don't see how by changing it to net, you wouldn't have the same CEQA problem, because the explicit purpose of changing it to net is to allow development of a larger parcel, which is not allowed currently. So I don't know why that wouldn't also require CEQA and evaluation. And now that the record has been made that the explicit purpose of changing it is to allow for development of larger parcels, it sounds like that would be easily challenged. So I wish that we had additional time, that we had started earlier, so that we could have engaged in a different process where we could have done the required environmental review, because I think it makes sense to be allowed to do more acres per year with a 20 acre total, but those are not the current cards available. So in terms of the changing things, I agree that it should be a 4/5 vote. And other than that, I think the improvements that have been made, some of the language that's been removed and allowing for affordable projects to be approved outside of city limits make sense and are good improvements. And I appreciate the subcommittee for the work that they did in bringing this forward.
Councilmember.
Yeah, I think that we had a good ad hoc. We had a lot of history there. I like that Steve Barbos and Larry Barnett were involved, and Vice Mayor Hunley. One thing that I left the meeting is giving a lot of information back to the council so we could have this robust discussion as we move on. I do support the gross, and I do support the 4/5 vote, and the changes in a lot of the language, make sense. And that's how my direction would be tonight.
Could I just add one more thing or a question to Jeff? So there are comments about the somewhat seeming draconian policy language in the draft, and we had talked about this at our meeting. While they're not really things or requirements, but it does talk about like meeting the minimum needs of Sonoma for housing and sort of like why those sorts of things are in there, even though they're not limitations, they're just more policy language.
I think primarily because urban growth boundary legislation is viewed as growth controlling. And the findings were an acknowledgement that, yes, that is in fact one of its purposes and effects. But given the fact that we are limiting the growth to affordable housing and there's specific criteria that must be met, and the criteria are for very low and low income housing, which is typically not provided voluntarily by most developers. And the fact that we are acknowledging that there are lands within the city where we are encouraging low income housing and additional housing, I think we avoid the issue that this is strictly growth controlling, it's anti-residential development, it's anti-housing, and those are the reasons why those findings are in the ordinance itself.
So it's because we're making an exception to our own rule, and we're sort of showing that it's only because it's absolutely necessary for our well-being.
Well, let's see. You're referring to the language in the ordinance that's there now that was being retained. It talks about meeting the
yeah, like Fred mentioned, like the fact that like there's a few places where it talks about minimum needs.
Yes, there is a finding that must be made as part of the council's action to amend the UGB, which is that the proposed development is necessary to comply with state law requirements for the provision of low and or very low income housing. And the area of land within the proposed development will not exceed the minimum necessary to comply with that state law.
So currently, if we hit our RENA numbers, then we can't build outside of the UGB.
I'm sorry, I did not get that question.
It sounds like you're saying that if we have met our minimum requirements of affordable housing, low income, moderate income housing under our state mandated requirements or RENA numbers, then that is something that precludes us from being able to build outside of the UGB.
That's how I construe that language. Now remember, that's language that's in the current UGB that's been retained.
So that hasn't changed from the previous UGB.
No, it's in the UGB as it stands this very second. That language is in there.
And it will be in the UGB that we're voting on tonight. That language will stay.
That's the proposal, yes.
And the reason it needs to stay, or can we take it out?
Well, to me, it's always about sequence. When we're talking about tweaking this particular existing UGB, let's talk about that. This language theoretically does impose a limitation on the amount of development that would occur. And if we remove that, then that particular limitation would be removed. I don't know how to quantify that, though. We are fairly far away from meeting those. Right? You know, how do you construe that? Right now, the law simply requires, and help me with this, David, requires us to designate sufficient general plan and zoning designations to allow us to meet the various RENA numbers that that are imposed upon us. We are not obligated to build.
Right. We're only supposed to put the colors on the map to facilitate that.
Yes, and so we could construe this to be a build limitation rather than colors on the map limitation, because the colors on the map limitation, as we know, should satisfy our RENA numbers within the existing city boundaries right now. We should never need to consider land beyond the city's boundaries to meet our RENA numbers. And this clause, if taken literally, would preclude any additional affordable housing beyond our current urban growth boundary. And certainly that's not the purpose.
Okay,
that would make this particular UGB meaningless. So I think it could be construed as a building, meaning if the number of homes built in the city of Sonoma do not exceed the RENA allocation, then we can go out and attach new land, 5 acres per year, to approve and build affordable housing beyond the UGB. I think that's a reasonable construction. Do you understand what I'm saying here? The distinction I'm trying to draw? Remember, the RENA numbers are just numbers. And as David said, all we need to do to comply with the RENA obligation is make sure all the appropriate colors on our land use map and our zoning map add up to the RENA number. Now, we only can color those portions of our property within the city's limits. We can't go beyond our UGB right now and color 20 additional 20 acres. Then we can't do that because that's not within the law that allows us to do that. So if you take a strict reading of this criteria, it would preclude any additional amendments or aggregation of land to the city's limits. It would make the UGB essentially a meaningless piece of paper. So I would construe that finding that was imposed now almost 20 years ago to be a build, not a planning limitation. So if we have not built out all those homes that those colors that we put on our maps would allow, we can then annex or add to our urban growth boundary 5 acres a year to continue building affordable housing.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may, there's a correction I need to make. And the current red line version that we have, it does remove that finding about the existing vacant land. And Terry Shore and that group want that reinserted back in, whereas Mr. Alabak says he wants that removed.
David, we're talking about two different findings. The finding that's not touched is at the top of page 7 of 12 of the red line version in your packet. And that finding reads that the proposed development is necessary to comply with state law requirements for the provision of low and or very low income housing, and the area of land within the proposed development will not exceed the minimum necessary to comply with state law. So if we have not built out our RENA numbers, this clause, in my view, would allow annexation and amendment to the UGB.
Oh, there you go.
Now,
yeah.
we also know the RENA numbers are going up dramatically, and they will continue to go up for the next 20 years. The likelihood of us building out all those numbers, I think, is going to be very problematic.
So is that finding necessary? Do we need that?
Good question.
Could we base it on, like, instead of state law, the city's like need, like our health as a city, our economy, like our needs?
I need to think about that. I'm not sure.
I mean, this is very frustrating and upsets me because one of the main reasons, one of the things I thought we were trying to solve when we were going down this entire UGB process was this idea that it was incumbent on somebody to prove without a shadow of a doubt, whatever that meant, that they could not develop this affordable housing within the existing UGB, right? That was one of the main problems. And the definition of that was extremely confusing. Does that mean you can't afford the land? Does that mean there's no land for sale? Does that mean it's not zoned correctly? All the rest of it. And so it's important.
And if I might interrupt you, Mayor, that particular finding has been deleted. The subcommittee has recommended that finding's gone.
But now has the affordable housing that meets the RENA numbers been built? And does that mean a completed project? And the other question I'd ask you, Jeff, is would it be possible for someone to interpret it the other way to mean that there is the possibility to build these projects within your city limits, which we're required to prove anyway? Could somebody interpret it that way and deny this? Could we get sued based on that? I mean, of course we can get sued based on that, but legal opinions differ all the time, right? So that's your construction. That's the way that you believe it. Could somebody easily come along and say, no, City of Sonoma has proven the ability to build within the city limits. Therefore, you can't go outside the UGB.
Well, we can certainly modify that finding to reflect it's a build criteria and not a planning criteria. Whether the issue to me always is, does that trigger some sort of a environmental impact that we can't identify or we must in some sort of environmental analysis? That's the question I have. And I don't, as I said, I do not know whether that's the case or not. We're dealing with 20-year-old language here. And I do not know what the intent was of that particular language specifically.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Amy.
Could you insert an additional language that said, I can't remember the exact language what you just read, but that says if we've met our RENA numbers, or, and say something related to like a city ordinance? Just add in that we have, like, make it either that we need it to meet our RENA numbers, build out our RENA numbers, or to be in compliance with some city ordinance, and then we'll just put that ordinance in.
Or like a resolution of a housing emergency or something still, or housing need for low-income portable housing. Or, I mean, can we just put in this or it right now that we have a need for affordable housing and make the finding? Probably not.
I think it would be easier, frankly, to delete the finding altogether, rather than trying to tweak it and make exceptions to it.
I mean, this is my problem right now with this whole process and the way that this is going. You know, we promised a kind of more robust public discussion about this. And I know that there's been a lot of challenges, but we haven't been able to do that. And we're deciding on a 20-year document. And it seems like we're kind of trying to jerry-rig it in a way to meet what our discussion was previously. And we're not in a position where we can do CEQA at this point. We weren't previously. We're making a really strong 20-year decision, and we don't have clarity on the things that we all set out to do, which was to make it possible for affordable housing to be developed outside of the UGB. We had a stated goal as a group that we wanted to allow, I don't know if it's net or gross, but to allow you to bring in a limit of 20 for the total time, but more than 5 per year. And that was just gone away. We figured out some other thing. I wasn't communicated about that. It was all held within the subcommittee. There wasn't time for public comment prior to this meeting. And we're making a really big decision right now to put what on the ballot for 20 years. And I just think like this whole process has been, and I understand the issues with COVID and all the other things that have gone on, but this is a really important decision. And I understand the ability to go after a new UGB, but what we're talking about here is a much more restrictive one, I feel like, with regards to affordable housing that's been done before, or that than what we discussed at the Joint Planning Commission meeting. And I think it'll be extremely difficult to bring it back to voters. And I think it'll be, I just think that this process has been a little flawed.
This is a public meeting. We're not making the decision today. There's going to be a second public meeting. Then we will make the decision. But the subcommittee, we did a lot of work. What we did was a proposal. We're not going to get it right the first time. So now we have proposed it to the council and the rest of the whole council's feedback. And then the voters get to decide.
I just think we've got such a ticking clock over our heads right now. And the fact that we can't go out for CEQA, we can't do what we agreed upon. There was, before this meeting, before our joint public comment meeting, city council and planning commission meeting, there was a lot of tension from affordable housing activists and from UGB supporters. And I thought that we developed a very good solution in that meeting. And then we come to find out that solution isn't possible. There's another solution that wasn't discussed, it wasn't commented on. We're finding this out now. We've got to come back very shortly with a proposed language. There isn't time to go back, have a larger discussion. I just think it's unfortunate. I understand the subcommittee and everybody had time constraints, and having COVID is a major issue as well. But I just feel frustrated with this and how this is being played out, especially for a 20-year document.
I just want to say that I don't think it has anything to do with the subcommittee per se. I think it has to do 100% of when we started. We started way too late, past the time when an EIR could be done. That was like a gun to our head the whole time, which was like extend it or don't extend it, but you can't change it. And that was wrong. That was wrong. And there's a million reasons that can be put forward of why that didn't happen, but this is kind of, fundamental city business and a big issue for the entire town. And I also am frustrated that the process happened that way. And I think there were a lot of members of the public at the time that were also frustrated that we weren't having, the complete discussion. But here we are. So
Yeah,
you know.
and I'm not seeking to blame the subcommittee or put the blame on them. I just think that this has been, we're in the situation where we got this measure and it's like, well, you've got to vote for this, even though it isn't kind of what we agreed upon. And, there wasn't time to think about this distinction. There wasn't time really to bring this back to housing activists to talk about what the implications are here. And we're having that discussion now, sure, but it just doesn't feel like there's adequate options.
I would be fine with removing that finding.
So would I.
Okay, so would I.
And I.
And so would I.
Madeline, do you want to comment or should I make a motion?
You can make a motion.
Are we going to come back? Is it coming back or are you just taking feedback?
I'm not ready for a vote. I have a question about the affordability piece with the 51% low and very low income. We received notices from affordable housing developers that this would make it exceedingly difficult to fund projects if such a high percentage were required. We should keep it at 100% affordable housing, but I think I support lowering the amount for the low and very low. We've received a number of, I think that's a discussion worth having, whether or not we should lower that requirement.
Well, I also saw communications about making it 100% low and very low. So I can tell you at least where the subcommittee was coming from was that we recognize that low and very low is a priority, but that it might not always be financially feasible to have 100% low and very low, but wanting it to be more low, very low than moderate, because I mean, sometimes moderate, the rent is the same as market. So you certainly don't want it to be all moderate, even though that's also something that is helpful. So 51% was picked so that it would require projects to be a majority low, very low. So that's why it's not lower than that. If there was perhaps a higher threshold, but it was just trying to give flexibility and recognizing that if we could at least get 51% and the rest was moderate, then that would be a benefit for the city.
Were the comments you received from developers or were they from?
Yes.
Okay. I wanted it to be 100% requirement?
Yes.
I guess the goal there would be to value the land.
Probably. I mean, it's just looking at doing more projects like Altamira that are completely done by, tax credits and things, which might be a different model than if you were doing it considering moderate, which you get more money from.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. I think, the only ones that I've received in relation to this is just in the last couple of months or last couple of weeks. So we've only seen the one. And obviously you could go up to 100% with your project. You could bring that forward. But I don't know. I'm not a housing developer, so I can't speak to what would be easier or harder there. It seems to add more flexibility is a good thing, but then I agree with you that, very low and low are very hard to build. And if we're going to build outside the UGB, then that should be the predominant concern. Okay.
In addition to 51% low, very low, I would also support 60%. But I don't know if that's moving in the direction that you're talking about.
I think I either propose it where it is now or lower it to allow more flexibility for development. Okay. I'm pretty much done with my comments. I just think it's, yeah.
Do you want a motion or do you want feedback or a straw poll or what do you want?
I think a straw vote would be great on the principal issues we've been talking about. That would be very helpful.
Could we just
Okay.
have like a definitive list at the end of this?
Yeah, could you lay those out?
The page.
I mean, I know,
So I would say yes to the following: 5 acres gross, 4/5 vote for changes, and I'm open, but how it currently is written is fine for me. 51% affordable. Are there any other issues?
Removing that one finding.
And
Delete
removing.
that.
So I would vote yes on all of that.
I would prefer a 3-2 vote, but I had already agreed with the subcommittee that 4/5 because it was a very important thing, so I can support that too.
I could support that.
I don't support the 5 acre. I think that removing the riparian habitat is important. I think that allows for the most likely project to be developed. I'm fine at 51%, but I'd like to hear more from developers, affordable housing developers on that. I am comfortable with removing the finding. What's the other piece? Is that it?
4/5 vote, 4/5 vote?
4/5.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. I agree with Vice Mayor Hunley that 2/3 is acceptable, but this is a vote of the people, and I'm swayed by that argument as well. I'm comfortable with 4/5. I think protecting this is good. So,
Councilmember Agramonte, have you made your views known?
I said I agreed with what Amy was saying. I feel comfortable with it. And I'm sorry that it was so difficult. I thought this was going to be clear and I don't know how this happened, but I agree with 5 acre gross, 4/5 vote, 51% affordable, and removing removing.
Finding.
Thank you.
Councilmember Cook?
Yes, I already agreed with what Amy said. I'm for the 4/5 vote. I'm for the 5 acre gross, and removing the finding is fine. And there was one more.
The 51% affordable for very low and low income.
Yes, I support that because it's understandable.
Okay. Those are the central issues we've been discussing. We now have direction, and we will put pen to paper and come back with a package for you to address. And I think June 29 is the targeted council meeting.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, we can certainly put the revised version and red line again on the webpage so that the public can see it before the 29th.
okay. All right, we're moving on.
Could we take a 3-minute break?
Sure.
I'm ready. Thank you.
Are we taking a break?
Yeah, we're taking a break.
Hi, Logan.
Hi, Suzanne.
I'd like to start by acknowledging that there are far more pressing societal issues facing all of us. Society and our work in local government is providing a continuum of services that support our human, built, and natural environments, helping them survive and thrive. We're in pretty extraordinary times, but we will move forward, and the stability and importance of a well-planned and reliable transportation system will always need to be a part of what we do. So with that, I'd like to walk through, I'd like to start by walking through a brief history of our current measure, explain the Go Sonoma proposal and its benefits to Sonoma Valley, talk about the process to advance the measure and why we should do so now. Tonight, we are seeking action from the City Council to proceed with this measure. The SETA is the county-wide agency that manages a quarter-cent sales tax known as Measure M. It's dedicated to funding critical transportation infrastructure projects and transit operations. The measure is set to expire in 2024, but the need for dedicated local transportation funding is ongoing. To start, I'm going to cover a few of our accomplishments under Measure M, how we've leveraged state and federal funds, and the transparency with which we carry out our work with our partners in each of the cities and the county. In 2004, when 2/3 of Sonoma County voters supported Measure M, we've been successfully providing funds directly to each city and the county and delivering regionally significant infrastructure projects ever since. Being a self-help county, meaning we bring our own money to the table, has been a key part in getting infrastructure built. It gives us the ability to get projects ready to go, to compete effectively for outside funds, and to control funds that can only be spent here locally on transportation priorities. This leads to local jobs and helps provide a stable source of revenue to keep transportation programs and projects moving. In addition to working with local jurisdictions, we also work with our Citizens Advisory Committee that oversees project funding, Measure M audits, annual reporting, and the development of a multi-year strategic plan. The SETA has a proven track record of delivering regional projects like Highway 101 and soon the 116-121 intersection improvements. Having a reliable revenue source, the SETA has leveraged competitive state and federal funds at a ratio of 5-to-1 to widen the Highway 101 corridor. Other projects have seen similar matching opportunities. We've partnered with local jurisdictions to help build Arnold Drive, the Arnold Drive Roundabout, the Central Sonoma Valley Trail, and dozens of paving jobs throughout the city of Sonoma. None of that would have happened, none of that would have been possible without a local commitment that gets projects shovel ready and matches construction funding. The transportation sector is a key component of job creation and economic support. A thriving and healthy economy relies on a multimodal transportation system for the movement of people and goods, plus building infrastructure projects and running transit creates local jobs that have a ripple effect throughout the county. Since Measure M has a 20-year life and is set to expire in 2024, the SETA board started discussions more than 2 years ago about if and when we should ask voters to support extending the funding. The process started in 2017, but for a variety of reasons, it being a non-presidential year, there were some competing transportation measures on the ballot. There was uncertainty about whether or not full funding for 101 would be available. The board opted to defer from the 2018 election to the general election in 2020. That timing actually aligned really well with our update to the Comprehensive Transportation Plan, the SETA's guiding policy document that showcases project priorities across all modes. It is developed with all of our partner jurisdictions through a robust stakeholder engagement. Prior to developing the Go Sonoma expenditure plan, we received project priorities from each of the jurisdictions and our bus operators. We also used the pavement management system data to develop information on what our road maintenance needs will be over the next 20 years. After that, we used some of our existing structures to conduct stakeholder outreach, plus we also used community group meetings and polling to assess how people feel about transportation. With that information in hand, we developed the Go Sonoma expenditure plan via the SETA board and extensive discussions with stakeholder groups and individual members of the public. The discussion focused on how best to address all modes effectively and yet retain support from a supermajority of voters. Now that the expenditure plan is finalized and approved by the SCTA board, state law requires a majority of the cities representing a majority of the population, plus the county board of supervisors, must support moving forward, which brings me here this evening to talk with you. Before moving into the content of the measure, I just wanted to reiterate the public outreach. This slide shows the results of 616 individuals who were surveyed through community meetings, where we went out to different community groups. We had focus groups, we had an online survey, and the top three results from folks, the top three results suggest that their main concerns with our transportation system is it takes too much time to get around. The transportation sector causes harm to the environment through greenhouse gas emissions, and we need better maintenance of the system. In addition to the non-statistical feedback that we got from our survey, we conducted a statistically valid poll of 600 people in October of 2019. There was very solid 73 to 75% support for a 1/4 cent sales tax extension. You can see some of the top line numbers in the slide here. For example, people's priorities were to see pothole repairs. That came in at 83%. Obviously, we are in a very different time now than we were in October. But countywide polling conducted in early May on a different topic also tested our ballot question, and it came in again well over the 2/3 support required for success. So that has encouraged the board to continue to pursue the measure. However, given all of the uncertainty we are facing about our health and the economy, the SCTA board will conduct another poll in early July before making a final decision as to whether or not to proceed. We took the outreach and the polling data and developed our vision and goals for our measure and for our long-range plan. Our vision is connecting people, places, and goods as we transition our transportation network to zero emissions by 2050. And our goals are to be connected and reliable, safe and well-maintained, community-oriented and place-based, and zero emissions. From there, we developed our ballot question. And the ballot question, I'm going to read it just in case there are members of the public who don't have the visual. Without raising taxes, shall the Sonoma County Transportation Authority implement the Go Sonoma Act to repair potholes, reduce congestion, make biking and walking safer, expand local bus service, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, improve evacuation routes, and enhance transportation services for students and seniors by continuing for 20 years the current 1/4 cent sales tax dedicated to transportation, providing approximately $26 million annually. From there, we went on to put together an expenditure plan to further flesh out how the funds would be spent based on the premise of the ballot question. The expenditure plan is based on 4 program categories. 2 of them are formula driven, the smooth and maintain roads category and increase bus service. And 2 will be competitive, move traffic and improve safety category, and the build bikeways and pathways category. I will run through the 4 program categories and talk about how Sonoma Valley will benefit from Go Sonoma as well. The smooth and maintain roads category, this program mirrors what we do now with Measure M, but it nearly doubles the money, the amount of money available to pave roads. So we use a formula, population road mile funding formula to distribute the funds. We cut a check to the city on a quarterly basis. The city then reports back to us annually on how the funds are spent based on certain parameters related to road maintenance. As you can see, Sonoma comes in at nearly $200,000 a year. In addition to that, you can see that the county gets a significant chunk. So the ability to partner with the county and identify roads in the valley that are valued to city residents as well is a possibility. So the next category is move traffic and improve safety. This program commits 27% of the measure funds and is a competitive program. The expenditure plan calls out specific criteria for for projects and how we will evaluate them, such as air quality and greenhouse gas emissions, connectivity, cost effectiveness, safety and public health, and traffic flow. There's more detail on that within the expenditure plan. After going through a screening process, they will be further assessed, again, based on how the projects reduce greenhouse gas emissions, how quickly they can be built, and the ability to create jobs, and how they address geographic equity. All projects will require an environmental review, engineering, and a 15% matching funds before construction can begin. Each jurisdiction has provided the SCTA with priority projects that serve as examples of the types of projects that will be funded from the Move Traffic and Improve Safety category. The list for Sonoma Valley includes several intersection improvements in the city, safety improvements on 5th Street West, and a citywide bike and pedestrian improvement project. In addition, in Sonoma Valley, the county has prioritized the 8th Street East corridor along with the Sonoma-Shellville Trail and the Sonoma Valley Trail. Funding in the Go Sonoma Act for local transit improvements will go to expanding and enhancing local bus operations to provide a more reliable service that works for more people. The measure more than doubles the local funding commitment to bus service, with 23% of the measure guaranteed for transit. Go Sonoma will fund a community benefit program to provide fare-free rides for groups like students and seniors, and this will address an immediate need, plus it can be used to match state and regional programs that will allow us to grow the fare-free opportunities. This is a formula-based program that is dedicated to our county's 3 bus operators, Sonoma County Transit, Santa Rosa City Bus, and Petaluma Transit. The last program is Build Bikeways and Pathways. This is a competitive program that is focused on better separating bikes from cars and making it easier to bike and walk for people of all ages and abilities. It includes building new infrastructure for bicycles and pedestrians that will increase overall safety, close critical gaps in existing routes, and promote the use of active transportation through community benefit programs like Safe Routes to School and Vision Zero. Go Sonoma quadruples the commitment of local funds to bike and ped projects, with 12% of sales tax revenue dedicated annually to this program. I mentioned that the SCTA has been planning for a November 2020 ballot measure for several years now, and here's why. The biggest reason is that we have a lot of work to do and our current sales tax is nearly spent out. We've been very successful with getting projects done, and the remainder of the funds are committed to future projects. By extending the local tax now, we can get new projects of all types ready to go, and this will not only provide benefits to people traveling in Sonoma County, but it will provide jobs to help with economic recovery. There are a lot of other good reasons to proceed with the measure in 2020. We have a proven track record, and we need to continue the work that allows people to move efficiently and safely. Having continuity of funding matters when it takes you years to build projects and plan for transit. We need to keep our self-help county status. It enables us to compete for state and federal funds, and we don't want to lose that leveraging opportunity. We need to support all modes, and having more local funds available to do things like help our bus systems recover from the impacts of the pandemic, grow their service, or explore new opportunities that get people out of their cars, reduce GHG emissions, and curtail vehicle miles traveled are imperative as we strive to reduce GHG emissions from the transportation sector. In addition, there are not likely to be as many ballot measures on in 2020 as we would have anticipated pre-pandemic. 2 regional measures, one related to housing, the other to transportation, have been postponed. Several statewide initiatives have been shelved. And while there are some jurisdictions like Sonoma that are considering a citywide general tax measure, there are no other countywide special taxes planned at this time. If we wait, the ballots in 2022 and 2024 are likely to be very crowded. And finally, we need a 2/3 majority to pass. High voter turnout is critical, and we know 2020 will certainly provide that. So what is next? I will be presenting. You are the first council I've had the pleasure of presenting to on this. We will, since the expenditure plan has been approved, I will be presenting to all 9 cities and the Board of Supervisors over the next couple of weeks. And if we get support from the cities, we will conduct a poll in early July. After assessing the poll results at their meeting on July 13th, the SCTA board will make the final determination about going to the ballot. SCTA would then ask the Board of Supervisors to place the measure on the ballot, which is an administrative act on their part. So I will close. Thank you for your time. I appreciate your consideration, and I would welcome any questions.
Thank you. Can we stop the screen share?
Sure.
And do we have questions of council? No questions? Suzanne, can you describe, if you didn't already, the difference between the previous measure and the current measure?
In terms of the content of the expenditure plan?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Measure M back in 2004 was very much focused on widening Highway 101. 40% of the measure was dedicated to 101. We have leveraged that 5-to-1 and gotten that project built. The last phase is under construction. So in addition to that, there was 5% of the money that was dedicated to SMART. So 45% of the measure is no longer needed for its original purposes. So the ability to repurpose an expenditure plan and shift the 45% around to other categories has been the main part of the discussion as we crafted this new measure. So it's become a lot more local project oriented, a lot more transit and bike oriented, and yet still provides the opportunity to double the amount of for local roads paving, double the amount for transit, and quadruple the amount for bike ped.
And then, do you have a question, Rachel?
I have a procedural question.
Sure.
So here's mine was to Kathy. So I see that the recommended action is council discretion. So what is desired from us this evening, other than hearing this wonderful presentation?
So the question is possible action to support the measure. That is kind of the requirement that Suzanne needs to, she can, as she mentioned within the presentation, they need a majority of agencies with an overall population plus the Board of Supervisors to basically take action and support the measure in order to move forward. So that's why this is before you to consider action.
Is that just a vote of support, or is it like a letter?
I'll let Suzanne answer that
what
question.
Is needed?
We need a motion and a second and direction as to whether or not the city council authorizes the SCTA to proceed with the measure, to put the measure on the ballot.
Yeah, through the. Are you done, Vice Mayor? Because yeah, I'd like to kind of add on to what Vice Mayor Hunley was saying. If the direction tonight is to proceed to put it on the ballot, is one thing, or are you asking for our support of the ballot measure?
I was actually going to make that distinction. The action tonight is to authorize or to cast the city's vote as to whether or not you authorize us to put it on the ballot. Whether you endorse the measure once it is on the ballot is a different question. I mean, that may be a distinction without a difference in some cases, but procedurally what we are seeking is the city's approval to advance the measure to the voters.
All right. Any other questions of council? No? All right, we'll bring it out to public comment. LaTanya, why don't you go ahead and, well, I guess we'll do the same order. So we'll go ahead and start with the attendees. I see Eris Weaver with her hand up.
Hi, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'm the Executive Director of the Sonoma County Bicycle Coalition, and the coalition very much supports the extension of Measure M. First, the SCTA staff and board has spent an incredible amount of time working with a really broad swath of community groups to really get this crafted in such a way that there would be wide support of it. I personally spent many hours in various meetings with folks representing the business community, the environmental community, and other organizations in getting that expenditure plan tweaked just right. Across the state, overall traffic fatalities have been going down, but bicycle and pedestrian fatalities have been going up. And we just lost another cyclist just within the past week. Since this measure quadruples the amount of funding for bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, will just make all of our roads so much safer. And since the shelter in place, I hear from all of our bike shops and I see on the streets that people who haven't ridden their bikes in years are pulling bikes out of the garage and getting out there. So we have quite a groundswell of more and more people out on the roads that I think will requiring us even more safety to this. The whole program on other road improvements also requires taking all users' needs into account. So that also includes projects that will be beneficial for pedestrians and cyclists. And then 38% of it going to fix roads. Whether you are riding a bike, taking the bus, or driving a car, you're doing it on a road, and we all know what our roads look like. And so all of us have an investment in fixing that. But most important thing is we have to keep our status as a self-help county. There are, if we were to lose that local funding stream, that would so much impair our ability to compete for funding for all kinds of different transportation projects. So I urge you to vote yes on the Go Sonoma Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Eris. Do we have another public commenter? Seeing no one raise their hand, Latanya, if you'd like to go ahead and read the written public comment that we received.
Thank you, Mayor Harvey. We have 4. The first says, Dear Mayor Harvey and council members, following are my comments regarding the proposed Measure M 1/4 cent transportation tax renewal. 1, the most important question is whether a comprehensive transportation plan conforming to the proposed expenditure plan will increase or decrease GHG emissions over the 20-year period covered by the expenditure plan. An expenditure plan that invests 65% in roadway projects and 35% in bike pedestrian transit projects is most likely to result in a net increase in BMT and GHG emissions, even if 5% of roadway funds go to bike and pedestrian amenities. 2, saying that this expenditure plan doubles transit funds and triples bike funds over the current allocation does not change the conclusion that the overall effect will be to increase GHG emissions. Simply citing a multiple of current grossly inadequate funding does not negate the overall effect of 65% to 35% ratio in favor of roadway projects. 3, the projects that accommodate more auto travel will increase GHG emissions substantially more than the projects that provide new bike lanes and pedestrian walkways will decrease emissions. The bike pedestrian facilities are worthwhile, but we need to reduce vehicle miles traveled to meet climate goals. It is a well-established principle of transportation analysis that projects which alleviate roadway congestion, i.e. move traffic more efficiently, will over time result in additional auto use based on the pent-up demand for roadway capacity. This result can be avoided by increased bus service that makes bus transit a preferable alternative. This would require a substantial increase in bus funding beyond what is in this expenditure plan. An acceptable ratio would be 60% for bike pedestrian transit, 40% for roadway projects. 4, the tax measure Go Sonoma Act sets up a process for prioritizing projects based on criteria, including best practice for crosswalk, bikeway, and pathway design, improve safety for users of all transportation modes, support reduction of air pollution and GHG emissions, improve community health and resilience, improve traffic flow while reducing VMT, which sound good in theory, but are too vaguely defined and open to interpretation to ensure the desired result. The fact that the projects will be subject to CEQA review does not provide any real assurance that their GHG emissions will be accurately counted and mitigated. The lead agencies will be the local governments proposing the projects, who will be biased in favor of their approval. This places the real oversight responsibility on the public to challenge inadequate evaluation of GHG impacts. The public does not have the resources to mount multiple legal challenges. As noted in the County Climate Emergency Resolution, the 2018 report of the IPCC projected that curtailing warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, a safe level to stabilize the climate, will require an unprecedented transformation of every sector of the global economy over the next 12 years.
Tanya, that's the 3
So
minutes.
okay, that's it. That was Jerry Bernhardt. The next. Eric Weaver spoke already, so I don't think I have to read that one. Tom Conlon. Dear Mayor Harvey and members of the council, from the start, my personal position on Measure M has been simple and consistent. To win support of the environmental community, SCTA should weigh the tax measure 60/40 to address the VMT issues that are driving our climate crisis. Make no significant changes to the CTA ad hoc's closed-door negotiated allocation 3565 and expect our active opposition. Compromise in some meaningful way to at least neutralize our opposition. My personal experiences with CTA most local elects is that they still don't take seriously the 69% of likely voters who consider reduced GHG emissions to be a top priority, even after all the fires, floods, and PSPS events we have suffered. They are quick to promise voters that they support bold climate action, e.g. climate emergency resolutions. However, when it gets to actually setting budgets, they have deferred to the status quo almost every time, even when they have had funding, e.g. restriping Highway 12, Broadway in Sonoma. They have failed to implement protected bike lanes and other proven VMT reducing best practices. Because this measure lacks the needed support of environmentalists like myself, I strongly recommend not putting it on the ballot in November. Thank you, Tom Conley. The next, sorry, forgive me, give me 1 second. Actually, that's it. I had Tom Conlon twice. Okay, that's it, Mayor Harvey and Council.
Thank you. Do you have any other comments from the public? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council for council member comments.
Well, this is Madeline. I have a comment. It's a shame that we're talking about these things. Suzanne always has a wonderful presentation. It's a wonderful board, but we shouldn't even be talking about all these improvements for automobiles and gas emissions that are happening. If we had made, before many of you were born, a decision to bring Bart up here, Suzanne's request would be far different, I think. But it's not so, and I'm just saying I'm sorry about that, and there's no way to turn this around. But we're going to continue to do the same thing because our roads are going to go bad again, and all of these things are going to happen again. Potholes. So I'm sorry that Sonoma County, even though I think the Transportation Authority does a great job, it's still out of step with what really is needed for us and for the county. And it's a shame we weren't able to make that decision. What would that have been 40 years ago? Thanks. I support this, but I'm just saying it's sad.
Okay. Ready?
I thought it was a great presentation, and I support the work that went into making it more bicycle friendly and bus friendly. But I am not going to support the tax. I think this is the wrong time to bring forward a tax. We have our own tax measure, and I think that the appetite for taxes in this economy is going to be really, really low. And so if we can only have one, I'm going to have to pick our own sales tax, in addition to which sales taxes are regressive, and a lot of great things can happen with tax money, but I don't think we should have regressive taxation as the funding source for public transportation, really. So.
Okay. Other comments?
Yeah, I'll go next. Yeah, I do believe it's probably the poor timing. I will not be supporting this tonight. And I think that I liked a lot of the public comment. I do believe that we need to look at alternatives and, the taxes that keep going up. It's just killing California at this point. But even with that said, coming back in 2022 would be a lot better than right now because there's just too many unknowns. So I will not be supporting it.
I do support putting it on the ballot. I think that there will be a lot of competition, and it will be interesting to see how it turns out. It looks like there's still a lot of public support for this issue. And looking at when people vote for tax measures, they tend to start with the local. So I think that it's not going to take away from ours. And, Sonoma's county is in a tough spot because it's very big and there's many roads and places are very far apart. But I enjoyed the presentation and I found it very informative. And so I think that this one deserves a shot before the people. And then I would be remiss to mention that in addition to the county doing all these bicycle-friendly improvements, it is incumbent on the cities to also do such improvements inside of our city limits.
Great. I will be supporting this measure as well. I think it's been a good process at SCTA. We have significant improvements here for the amount of money going for bus and bike. I also like that this is a local roads measure. Previously, this was all funding for Highway 101. And we have a Springs community right outside our borders that has been basically ignored for the past 30 years in terms of road repair. So additional funding to support road repair in those areas, to me, is a social equity issue. There's a lot of money that's spent on axle replacements and pop tires and the rest of it. And I know as a cyclist, the county roads are in major disrepair. And we have been able to leverage these monies significantly to develop needed improvements. The Arnold roundabout is a great improvement that we've built, which improved traffic flow. The 116 and 121 improvement will be a great improvement as well. And so to see these be local measures, I think that's great. I also see this as an economic boost. This will provide infrastructure jobs throughout our county and to smaller firms. Another thing the SCTA funds go towards is the fare-free bus program. It's a very important program, and it will continue to support these programs throughout our county and expand the money for them too, and expand fare-free programs. So there's additional help for seniors, veterans, students, and everybody when we have these fare-free shuttles. And we've seen bus ridership increase by over 700%. Not approving this will leave our buses in a dire situation if they don't get any money. In fact, we're getting a major increase. I like the fact that the road improvements include significant money for additional pedestrian and bike repair or improvements as well, so that we have multimodal transportation throughout the county. And I thank Suzanne for all of her hard work on this and her continued hard work at SCTA. You're a fantastic director of the organization, and I always enjoy working with you. So thank you so much. I think it's a good measure, and I'm happy to support it, putting it on the ballot in 2020. With that, if we can get a motion.
So would it be, I'd like to make a motion to authorize SCTA to put this measure on the ballot.
That work? And you want a second, or you want me to?
I'll second.
Okay. Can we get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Agramonte,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrison,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Henley,
Aye.
Councilmember Cook,
Uh-oh.
David, I couldn't hear you,
Councilmember Cook.
No.
and Mayor Harvey.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 3. You were a no. Sorry.
I'm a no.
So the motion carries 3.
Thank you.
I might have said aye by accident. Sorry. I'm a no.
I was confused.
Sorry. Sorry.
All right.
Thank you.
And appreciate your time.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Moving right along, item 6.3, discussion consideration and action to adopt a climate emergency resolution. And I'll turn this over to Travis, our sustainability coordinator, or to Kathy.
Let's get
Travis in right now.
Yeah, well, we're getting Travis in. So, Mayor Harvey, members of the council, this is a climate emergency resolution. This has been one of the items that your Community Service Environment Commission's been working on for about the last year. And so I'll turn it to Travis Wagner, our sustainability coordinator, and provide a brief update.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Mayor Harvey and City Council members. So tonight, climate emergency resolution is being presented for your consideration. The resolution is a declaration by the City Council in support of taking emergency action on climate change. Thus far, 6 jurisdictions and Sonoma County have adopted variations of the Regional Climate Protection Authority's recommended template for climate emergency resolutions. So tonight you're presented with 2 versions, the Community Services and Environments Commission's version and a staff recommended version. The CSCC version was produced by its Climate Action Subcommittee, and this version was then circulated for community comment. Now, at the January CSCC meeting, the Commission voted unanimously to forward the Climate Action Subcommittee's version to staff for review. At the February CSCC meeting, staff presented its recommended version, and at the February meeting, the CSCC voted unanimously to forward its version minus attachment B, so it was a modified version. So there are 3 attachments in tonight's packet related to this particular agenda item. So first one is the CSEC recommended version that incorporates staff recommendations, and it has red for recommended deletions and blue for recommended inserts and word changes. So it's an attempt to do a side-by-side comparison all in one document. Number 2 is a matrix table which presents the rationale for changes recommended by staff. So I will note that this was the, if you have looked at the matrix or can see that now, on the 3rd row, it has attachment A, in which that was contained in the original, in the approved CSCC version, and the staff recommended that that be replaced with a reference to the resolution by the City Council that adopted the 22 local climate measures. And in the right hand is the explanation for the rationale. Well, that has since changed because the City Council adopted the Environmental Sustainability Work Plan, which has basically prioritized the climate action. So that was the original rationale, just to let you know that that has been superseded by the City Council's approved work plan that happened on May 4th. And so that's the 3rd attachment is the approved Environmental Sustainability Work Plan for reference. So the recommendation for tonight is to adopt the climate emergency resolution. And this concludes the staff presentation.
All right, do we have questions of council? No. Okay, we'll go ahead and bring it out for public comment. And please raise your hand if you'd like to be recognized for public comment. Again, virtually, we've got Nima Sherpa.
Hi. My name is Nima Sherpa, and I'm a senior and the president of Red Club at Sonoma Valley High School. I'm here today on behalf of those who couldn't attend, such as Sharon Sherpa, Tenzing Sherpa, Hakwa Sherpa, and also speaking on behalf of Juliana as well. We all urge the City Council to pass the climate emergency resolution. We are here to voice our concern for our future as climate change poses a threat to not only us, but other species on this planet as well. I'm here because I want to see the change in our city. I want us to take action to combat the climate crisis and prioritize the future of our next generation. I want us to take action to combat the climate crisis, and I think the City Council should pass this resolution because it's already been edited to reach a compromise, but it would be better if you guys passed the original version. And now the younger generation is paying attention to our leaders and demanding action. We are not going to stay silent any longer, but rather demand action and make sure that action is taken. My future is at risk. Our future is at risk. And the whole planet is at risk. And we want to see action taken to address these concerns. And it should start with the city. So I really urge that all of you guys pass the climate emergency resolution. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Nima. We have Leary.
Hi, yeah, my name is Kelly O'Leary.
Kelly. Hi, Kelly.
But yeah, O'Leary, perfect. I like that. Yes, hello. My name is Kelly O'Leary. I'm a science teacher at Sonoma Valley High School and the faculty advisor for Earth Club. Thank you for prioritizing the climate emergency resolution. It's affirming to know that this is a priority at such a turbulent time. We are already in a post-climate change world. The global average temperature has increased by about 0.9 degrees Celsius. If we stop emitting greenhouse gases today, the built-in warming from this pollution would cause another 0.6 degrees Celsius increase before temperatures stabilize. This is why the crisis is so urgent, because to go beyond that combined 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming will be catastrophic. Scientists are alarmed and concerned by projections of a 2 degrees Celsius increase. We are on track to reach 3 or even 4. At 2 degrees Celsius, we lose almost all coral reefs, destabilizing the vast majority of ocean ecosystems and removing a food source for more than 500 million people. How million people will be threatened at 3 degrees Celsius, at 4 degrees Celsius? We are currently meeting on Zoom because our leaders recognized there was a crisis and ordered us to stay home. The entire global population altered its behavior to mitigate this crisis. We must respond with this level of urgency to address the climate crisis. I hope we all recognize our failure to act and resolve to focus our energy to do better. I would like to see the CER pass today, but I'm curious to see which version will be accepted. My students and I added language that references climate justice. I believe we might have asked for more than you anticipated, but hear me when I tell you that it is required. Economic and racial injustice are at the heart of the climate and ecological crises. Our community's government is largely white, while the student population at SVHS is largely Latinx. This is injustice. The most polluted neighborhoods of our community are largely Latinx. This is injustice. I know that the members of this council care deeply for all residents of our city, but if our city wants to overcome the climate and ecological crises, if it wants to make living here affordable, if it wants to uphold our values of equality, then we must recognize that these problems are inherently entwined and will only be solved when they are addressed holistically. So if the CER passed today does not include policies inspired by the Green New Deal and does not include the establishment of a committee that is representative of our population, then I want to see future actions that will address these issues, because to not solve them is to fail. And in this case, failure is not an option. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kelly. Next we have Tom Conlon. Tom?
Hi there. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Great. Thank you. Sorry for the delay. I'll be brief. I, too, am curious to see which version you will adopt. The Community Service Environment Commission was surprised, I think, that the students showed up and had even stronger things to say. And I'm disappointed that some of those things have been pulled back in the newer draft. So I will be interested to hear how you decide to proceed tonight. Thank you for consideration.
Thank you, Tom. We have Laura B.
Emergency should take over half a year to be
Laura, do you want to
long overdue. As a student at Sonoma Valley High School,
Laura, you've got kind of a
Okay.
bad connection. Do you want to start just to begin?
My name is Laura, and I'm part of the Sonoma Valley.
Go ahead.
I want to express my feeling of urgency for having this climate emergency resolution passed. An emergency should not take over half a year to be addressed. This is long overdue. As a student at Sonoma Valley High School and community, and a member of the community, I feel that my voice was not listened to nor acted upon when everyone is living with the consequences of climate change each day. This resolution needs to be passed today so policies, plans, and projects can be evaluated and we can begin the process of the goal towards net zero emissions. Please listen to my voice. I am concerned for my future. I want this resolution to be passed today. This is urgent. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. And Latanya, I'm seeing no more people raise their hand for public comment.
Okay.
Go
Dear
ahead.
members of the City Council, thank you for taking up the challenge of the climate crisis through our consideration of a climate emergency resolution. Please consider these comments on the draft CER during your deliberations at the council meeting this evening. The whereas section of the CER clearly establishes the nature of the climate crisis and the need for urgent committed action on the part of all levels of government. It is disappointing to see that in the second resolved of the CER language is proposed for insertion, seeking to reduce citywide GHGs. That does not reflect either urgency or commitment in achieving GHG reductions. I would propose replacing seeking to with setting as a goal. In resolved 3, the word immediate is proposed to be struck, but no alternative time frame is proposed. When does the city propose to begin this evaluation? If the climate crisis is urgent and an emergency, then integrating consideration of the consequences of any city action from the perspective of the climate crisis should begin immediately. As part of analysis and preparation of items coming before the council for consideration and should be followed in the near future by a comprehensive look at city activities. For example, consideration of the budget for the fiscal year 2020-21 should be evaluated from the perspective of GHG reduction opportunities and not postponed to the next budget cycle. In the next to the last resolve, the city commits to a goal of net zero GHG emissions by 2030. I appreciate and support this commitment. Sincerely, David Leland. Next. Hi, my name is Cassim Palladini and I'm 10 years old. The climate change is a big issue that needs to be taken seriously. Some using fossil fuels say our small town won't make a difference, but it all starts with one small town. Climate change is an emergency. That's why we need the climate emergency resolution. We need to act now. This is our one chance because there is no planet B. We need to protect our planet for the benefit of everyone. The future lies in our hands. The last email, dear City Council members, I am writing in regards to the climate emergency resolution. Climate change is an existential threat to current and future generations. Cities produce approximately 75% of global CO2 emissions. Therefore, they must be an integral part of the solution. While the city of Sonoma cannot single-handedly address the growing threat of climate change, the urgency of this problem necessitates doing all we can to help address it. I urge you to adopt the CSEC approved resolution with no or few modifications. Here are my comments with some specific staff recommended changes. Whereas number 16, please retain whereas number 16. The strength of the language matches the urgency of the emergency. We can no longer ignore the effects of our individual and collective actions have on our fellow humans. People are literally dying, and it is not excessively strong. It is appropriately strong. Resolve number 2, please remove the recommended insertion of seeking to mitigation, seeking to reducing citywide greenhouse gas emissions to net zero. This eliminates the goal of actually reducing emission to net zero. As worded, the city can simply seek to reduce emissions. We've seen how far these vaguely worded goals passed around the world have gotten us. You must retain the specific stated goal. We may not achieve it, but we should retain it as a state goal. Resolved, number 3, please retain the word immediate, that the city of Sonoma will begin an immediate evaluation of all existing and emerging policies, plans, projects, purchases, and priorities. It is, after all, an emergency. We've waited long enough. Evaluation should begin immediately. Resolved 5, please retain the other documents that were removed in the staff recommendation, zoning ordinance, and other documents guiding local land use and development. Resolved 7, please retain the language forming a climate emergency committee. It may create additional work for members of the CSEC or subcommittees, but the work required to address this emergency is essential, as is the specific inclusion of marginalized communities. Those on the front lines of the impacts of our fossil fuel economy deserve a voice in guiding the response. Resolve number 12, please retain the key initiative proposal as written by the CSEC. Addressing the climate emergency should not be in competition with the many other items. That's it? Okay,
That's the
this
3
was Jennifer Palladini.
Is
That's
that
all
the
we
end of
have.
the email? Okay,
Yes,
great.
that's all we have.
All right, I'm seeing nobody else raise their hand for public comment. I'm gonna go ahead and bring it back to council. I'd like to go first on this one. So for me, I think I agree retaining the it is inexcusable. Whereas number 16, I don't support that being removed. I do think it's appropriately strong. I think that climate change is an extremely important issue that we need to be dealing with directly. I support keeping that one. I support getting rid of the, what is the point there? The seeking to in mitigation. I think a lot of the issue that is being heard here is this question about whether or not there's going to be real action taken on this. And that's kind of the constant question, is whether or not we're going to move forward. I know Santa Rosa has their own climate and emergency committee, but that's housed at the city council level. I'd wonder if there's council support to do that. I don't think it makes sense to have it at the CSEC. I'd rather see, if we had a subcommittee, that be at the council level with at least quarterly meetings. I think if we have that, where we have a regular council, we can comfortably remove some of the other language, kind of forcing the hand. But if we can't have that, I think it maybe makes sense. I mean, we're dealing with a major crisis right now, so I have some concerns about, the general plan update and things like that. I've expressed interest in including a climate portion to the general plan, but we don't have that process underway right now, and so it can't be done immediately. So I don't want to pass an emergency resolution that we're not going to meet the standard of. But right now, those are kind of my two main things. I'm personally comfortable leaving the reference to the Green New Deal in. I don't know how the rest of the council feels about that. I think that the language that staff came up with also pays respect to the nature that the way that climate change directly affects marginalized communities more. And I think that if we have a climate subcommittee that's made up of the city council, then I think that it will remain a high priority and a key initiative, because we'll have a standing committee that deals with that. Go ahead, Rachel.
Thank you. First, just as a note that I just feel like the sort of double red line is really helpful in seeing the changes, but I don't think it really is very conducive to talking about it, because I'm going to list what I think should stay, and it's tedious, so bear with me. But first, I wanted to say that I thank you to everyone who worked on this. I had a chance to go to the high school and speak with the club and have them present this resolution to me, explain to me why it is written the way that it is. And I think that particularly for our Gen Zers, that they see a sense of urgency that perhaps some of us older generations, including myself as a millennial, may not feel. So I think that, maintaining some of the spirit of urgency would be a good thing. And it's a little bit uncomfortable. It's not the way government likes to operate, but we all know this is a very important thing. And at some point, cities are just going to have to face the facts and make it their top priorities. So that being said, so overall, I would support the staff version, but with keeping certain sections. And if you will indulge me, I would like to tell you which sections I think we should keep. The first one is on the second page of the resolution. It's the fifth whereas. It's Mayor just referenced it. It was referenced in a comment, but it starts with whereas it is inexcusable to do too little too late. I would like to keep that one. Next, on the same page, the first, be it further resolved that the city of Sonoma commits to a citywide climate emergency. Like the mayor, I would like to get rid of the phrase seeking to for the same reasons. On the next page, the third page of the resolution, I would like to keep the third be it resolved on that page, be it further resolved that the city of Sonoma will develop a climate emergency subcommittee. I think it should be a joint subcommittee between the city council and CSEC. I like your thought of meeting quarterly. I also feel the same sensitivity of the circumstances that we are in, and that things are a little bit chaotic. So I would like to adjust our expectations, but it's also something that could be easily put on the back burner, and it just needs to be something that is regularly studied. And when we get out of this situation that we're in with the city, that it's time won't be necessarily lost. So keep that, but make it a joint subcommittee. The next one, be it further resolved, the city of Sonoma will ensure that its sustainability coordinator similarly reference a joint subcommittee. Then I think the 8th be it resolved on that page, which says, be it further resolved that the city of Sonoma hereby establishes the development and implementation of the actions called for in this resolution as council high priority key initiatives. I would like to keep that. And then skipping the one the city added, which is, I guess that one's redundant now. So getting rid of the one that the city did, the watered down version. And then the next one, which is, be it further resolved that the city of Sonoma to set a clear example for the community. Similarly, as with earlier, of getting rid of the seeking language to get rid of the goal language and keep the more direct language that was in the original. And so that, if that was understandable, that is what I propose. It is the staff version. And as far as attachment A, I agree. I think that the work plan is, having been around when we adopted the Climate Action 2020 initiatives, and just that process that was involved, and sort of just like picking things, and some of them having like a relatively small impact, whereas there's things with larger impacts that can be. So I like the way that things are going now, and I agree with the replacing attachment A. And I think that's everything I was going to say. Yeah. Oh, and then also just to reference the Green New Deal language. I understand it, but I think it's going to make it a dated document, and so I'd rather sort of express what is intended in this document rather than reference something that is sort of far away and that will be not explicitly remembered in detail as intended by this document. So that part I support taking out.
Councilmember Cook?
Yeah, I'd like to start off by saying that I appreciate all the work the CSCC has done. I totally agree with almost everything that they have said. As a father of four, I'm horrified every day by what I see. Sometimes words are just not enough. Actions are what we need to take place. I think the biggest question that we have is it government's role or is it the people to change their culture? I think it's both. And I put the blame on both. I was horrified when I went to Safeway the other day. I do know that we're in a pandemic, but I voted against I voted for the ban on plastic bags. There are so many plastic bags going out of Safeway, and I understand we're in a pandemic, but there's other things that we could be using. And then you look at what's going on with our recycling, what we're doing with even not to bring up the Broadway too much, but one of the reasons I voted the way I voted is because I didn't want idling cars down Highway 12 because it is a state highway. So with that said, that's why we need a subcommittee. And I did like one of my colleagues, I'm not sure which one, or maybe both, Mayor Harvey and Vice Mayor Hunley, both stated they'd like to have it joint with the CSCC. I totally agree with that. I think it's time that we put actions in place. I don't want to make the goals too high that we can't achieve, and I don't want to do lip service. But I think Sonoma needs to look at the partners that we have, especially with our garbage and the recycling that we have. There's a lot of talk about water. I know that we're not in a drought right now, but we still should be talking about it when we're looking at different ways of our building and try to support the infrastructure to try to go to where we don't use as much water. I'm a farmer and we're environmentalists. I mean, we were the first environmentalists. We wanted to be the good stewards of the land. And right now, honestly, we're not. And I think a subcommittee would be very good. I'm not volunteering because I only have 7 months left on the council, but I think it's imperative to get the talk and start doing the serious talk. But there was some things in here that made me kind of wonder if we're not looking at the past enough. The banning of gas leak blowers was a big move to show one little thing that you can do to stop emissions. If you look at Sonoma Clean Power, Councilmember Harrington is on that. I served, a few years on that. For what we've done here, there's a lot of good things that the city of Sonoma has done. And when we're looking at resolutions like this, we need to bring up some of the good things we have done to show people that we are moving forward. And, this is probably the wrong time to be discussing a lot in the middle of a pandemic, but we do need to be talking about it. And I totally do support pretty much what Vice Mayor Hunley, all of her highlighted points, with the explanation point going on the subcommittee and that being joint with the CSCC. I think it's important. And I really would like them to start, number one, with plastic bag use, and number two, with our recycling debacle in Sonoma County.
Right, Amy?
Okay. Well, I was looking at this and I was thinking, not to go too far back, but before I was on the city council, I was on the CSCC, and it was at that time that we had the Climate Action 2020 come forward, and we reviewed it, and then everything got stopped because of this Riverwatch lawsuit. And at that time, it was my idea, which my colleagues on the CSCC shared, that we could tell the city council that even if it wouldn't meet, even if the lawsuit was pending, that we could still pass all those measures. And the then council did pass it. And as a result of that, one of the first actions Carol Giovanato took was to switch over to Sonoma Clean Power. And we were the first city for a long, long time, maybe 4 years, 3 or 4 years, to actually switch over to Sonoma Clean Power. to the Evergreen program, which is 24 hours a day clean power for all of our city-owned buildings, and that actually had a huge effect. So in terms of like what, you know, just talking about things that we've already done, not to say we're perfect or great, but this is a progressive council and has been, and we have done real actions. In terms of, and I think that's what we should continue to do. And I see this resolution as a vehicle for a discussion, but not an endpoint. And so earlier this year, when we were talking about the building code, we had an opportunity to vote for a REACH code, which would have had even stricter standards. And at that time, I can't recall a single activist coming out in support of the REACH code. That was an opportunity that we missed. Perhaps I didn't bring it forward either. That's not a criticism of anyone, but I'm just saying that we've had opportunities to at least have a discussion about taking further actions, which I think a subcommittee would be helpful for. And I think having younger activists involved is wonderful. And I liked having the students give their public comments tonight. I think that's really important for us to have you involved. So in terms of the resolution, I'm open to the proposal that Councilmember Hunley made. I think the real improvements can be made by having specific concrete proposals in the future about things we can do, like switching to Evergreen or implementing a REACH code. And those are things that are going to take activism and organizing and education of the council and the public about what those are. But I think we have a lot of people interested in doing that. So I would support that. I support having a subcommittee. I think we have some really great people on the CSEC, so I would want them to be involved in that. And then I think sort of like informally or formally, it'd be great to have a student on there who's really interested in this, you know, in these issues and get their perspective as well.
Thank you, Amy. Madeline?
Sure. Well, I'm going to be as gentle as possible. This doesn't even feel like a resolution. It feels like a manifesto. So I think that's fine. And I'm excited that younger people are involved with this, and people from the school district, from the high school, which I think is important. But, you know, I don't know. That's all I'm going to say. I think it's a wonderful document. I agree with Vice Mayor Hundley. As I said, it feels like a manifesto, and it's like, you know, it's a vision, not a mission, not any of that stuff. So I don't know what to say, but I think it's fine.
All right, great. So I also got the opportunity to meet with the students at the high school, and I've been coordinating with Kelly, and I appreciate the work that everybody's done to get involved and bring this to us. I appreciate the work that staff has done to look this over and put this in line with what they think is achievable. But I also think that we need to move on and move forward. Most of what they proposed are the same conditions and issues that I raised in my initial comments, and I support that. I'm comfortable with including language to include the CSCC on the subcommittee. I think that's appropriate. And I agree with Councilmember Harrington that we have some great people on the subcommittee whose information and knowledge would be extremely useful. I think that, you know, the city of Sonoma has done great work on this. I agree with Councilmember Cook that the leaf blower issue was a big part of that. I agree with Councilmember Harrington that getting us on Evergreen, first city in the county to do that, was a great achievement. Also switching all of our light bulbs to LED and the rest of that. And we should continue to celebrate what we have done, but there's always places we can go further. We should maintain our status as a leader in climate. We should acknowledge too that we're going through a major budget issue as well right now, but hopefully we can see that repaired and have additional monies to support the work that we want to do. But I think it's important that we have a subcommittee so that this stays front of mind for the council, and whatever we can do to maintain that subcommittee. These 5 individuals will not always be on the city council. So I think it's incumbent to try to make it a little bit more structured. I don't know how we do that. I frankly don't know how we make sure that it's more of a standing committee that continues on. I appreciate Travis's work on the sustainability work plan. I think there's a lot of fantastic goals in here that are achievable, that are right sized for the city. And there are some, I think there's also a good use of that city council time is AB 1383, which is an incoming state legislation that will require basically every single business within the city of Sonoma to start composting. And it's something that we're not ready for. It's something that's going to take a lot of outreach to do. And I think that having some council member oversight over that is key. And it's a great climate initiative too, because removing compostable waste from our waste stream will reduce greenhouse gases as well. So it's a concrete solution there. I think, I don't know, Kathy, if you need us to run back through what I heard, or Rachel, if you want to run back through what you said, the ones that I pointed out, I know were
I don't think you need to run back through them. I mean, I think when we've got the tape, if there's any question, and I think I was watching Travis take notes and myself take notes. So I think we've got, and Vice Mayor Hunley was pretty clear in terms of how she went through. So I'll look to Travis to see. I think I've got clarity. Travis, do you think you've got clarity as well? Okay.
I'm sorry, Logan, can I just throw something in? Is there CRV in here? I don't remember. That's one of the most important things. I'm surprised everybody's missed it. I'm sure, Travis, you haven't. We have no recycling here for CRV, for bottles, cans, all of that. It was taken away from us from Cal Recycle, and that's bad. That's so horrible. So I would say keep our fingers crossed that we get the grant for the mobilization of a mobile unit that will come pick up CRVs. We have people now that depend on the money from CRV reimbursement who now have to travel to Petaluma or Napa. And it's, what do you do? Waste gas to go get money? I don't get it. So that's something I would like the students to take a look at, and hope that they can support that as well. That's something real important to a lot of people here in Sonoma. Thank you.
And Madeline, I have no doubt with your work and your advocacy at Zero Waste Sonoma that you'll get that done for us.
Well, we're working on it. Unfortunately, when you're a small city, you're not important. So I'm not getting used to that.
Well, you have a tendency to make your voice heard. So I think we're well represented by you.
Thanks.
Mayor Harvey, can I just, so I think we have captured, and I'm hearing consensus from the council, we'll have you take formal action about the recommendations from Vice Mayor Hunley. The other question about a committee, I did want Jeff to speak. I know we've talked about in the past about having 2 council members and 2 members of the CSCC, and he has some Brown Act considerations about how we do that. So what I can see, so I just want to see if he wants to speak to that. I think the other question, again, if the council wants, if you want to make an appointment to the subcommittee now, you could do that based on how the agenda is written. We would not have to re-agendize this. And again, then the other question is it a standing committee or an ad hoc? Standing committee would require Brown Act and noticing and those requirements. Versus an ad hoc would not. They would just be beat with the commission member. So those are just some considerations. If you do want to take that action tonight, which you could, I do want Jeff to comment about the CSCC involvement and how that needs to be done.
Thank you, Kathy. The agenda is, as you know, the template provides that the council can, on any item on the agenda, create a committee of itself. But that's all. You cannot create a committee tonight that's made up of 2 council members plus other people. So tonight you can create a committee of 2 members of the council on this item, and the agenda is structured to allow that to happen. That committee then later on can solicit the help of other people to meet with them, as did the ad hoc committee created to deal with the UGB. And that committee then retains its ad hoc nature and can meet without having to go through the formal noticing and agendizing requirements that are otherwise applicable to a Brown Act meeting. If that's not important to you, and you'd like the meetings of this subcommittee to be open to the public with a notice, advance notice, and the opportunity to participate, you certainly can do that.
I think I was on the UGB committee. There's certainly a convenience that comes with avoiding the Brown Act, but I also felt like the planning commissioners weren't like equal participants in this. And if it was something that was ongoing, then I think that it should be an official thing. And so the resolution itself sets a CSEC subcommittee. So what I'm suggesting is that we add council members to it to make it a joint. But I think since this is something that's going to be going on for a while, that this should just be a standing thing. I don't think we should make any decisions tonight. I think that this needs to be formed and then go through a process of like figuring out what it's going to be, because it's not going to be like a short-term project. It's like ongoing.
So Vice Mayor Hunley, if that's kind of the pleasure of the council, what you could do is appoint 2 members of the council tonight to help shape what that would look like as an ad hoc, and then it could come back to the council if you want. So this thing could evolve a little bit. You could start, and then maybe you come back and say, okay, now we want it to be a standing, and we want that, make that formal request. So
and from describing that as a joint, like, so if the resolution called it a joint, seems like it'd have to be but if it was going to be just the city council, would it just have to be a city council subcommittee in the resolution itself?
Well, tonight, there's nothing on the agenda that indicates you're creating a joint committee.
Well, I'm just saying the resolution that was on here was going to create a CSEC subcommittee. But so with the amendment, it would just be adding city council to the CSEC subcommittee that was in the resolution. Well, I guess it was in the original draft of the resolution.
Well, I think the other question, just Mayor Hunley, maybe on the, if you're going to do a subcommittee, I mean, the subcommittee here, the language was, it was in the resolution, draft resolution was very specific in terms of having other stakeholders, and it was a different vision. So I think, again, maybe in kind of where we are with timing and need to scope this, if there is a council subcommittee wants to come back, get put together now, and then we could come back with what you all think that should look like. It's a pleasure of the council.
Well, through the mayor, I think it would be nice to appoint 2 people tonight, if we could. And I would like to at least have one of the persons be Madeline Agamante, because she's on the looking like that. I think it's very important. I brought up recycling also, Madeline, but it's one thing that is really horrific here in Sonoma. And that's one thing that I think that we need to really look at. So I would like to be appointing people who are part of something at the beginning, and it can always change, as council members always change. And the other one, it could be any of the other, except for me. I've only got 7 months left, and it wouldn't be enough time.
Well, CRV is very important to me, and it's very important to the people of Sonoma, people who actually, they add to their income by recycling, and that was taken away from us. And Safeway was supposed to be paying a fine of $100 a week and never spent a penny, and we suffered for it. So, I want it to be in here, and it's not. But if somebody else would prefer to be on this committee, that's fine, and I can advise about what I found out about CRV. I know the Grocers Association, when I got crazy about it, called me and told me to stand down about this issue. Don't threaten the store. So it's kind of fun. That's my kind of play. But if somebody else prefers to be on this, I think that would be great. I can actually give information about CRV. I don't necessarily have to be on the committee, although I'd love to work with the students.
I think a scoping subcommittee makes sense. I'm just wondering what the words are going to be in the resolution. Like, what is it going to be described as?
Can't you have a separate motion to create this subcommittee and then adopt and approve the resolution on 2 separate actions?
Okay. Yeah. So this would be the subcommittee would be to fulfill the ultimate objective that is stated in the resolution.
Well, why couldn't you form a subcommittee in the resolution and then also form a council subcommittee and then the two just meet together like planning commission and city council?
Joint subcommittee.
Yeah.
Jeff, did you hear Councilmember Harrington's? I want to, at times, I think you've said that we can't do it that way for Brown Act. I just want to clarify.
Yeah, the problem we have here is that the agenda descriptor really does not identify the committees are being created by the adoption of the resolution.
So it's not part of what's going on.
And we're governed by what the agenda says you're doing, not what might be embedded in a 25-page resolution. I know I'm exaggerating the length here, but
so we would have to take action later to fulfill the goals of the resolution and create this committee at a later point, not today. Unless it was a subcommittee that was just us.
Right. If you create a committee that's not made up of the council, then that committee is governed by the Brown Act. You can't create other committees that are made up of persons other than the council. Then that committee becomes a committee that is governed by the Brown Act. I don't know if that committee wants to be governed by the Brown Act and have all of its meetings published, have notice in advance of those meetings to be published. I do not know what the desire is of that group. Maybe you do, and it's clear. I do not know. You could remove that part of the resolution, by the way, and adopt the resolution without the creation.
I've removed it, and I'm suggesting putting it back. I would like something a little more formal because I've been on subcommittee projects and they're great, but they tend to be like a little bit rushed and last minute, and there's not really a lot of continuity. And this is something that's like, it's a big issue. It's going to be going on for like our lifetime. So, whatever the scoping subcommittee of us to think about this more ongoing.
Yeah, I think that's a good first step. And you can select 2 of your members tonight as a scoping subcommittee to look at it and come back with a more comprehensive approach. That's completely appropriate.
And through the mayor, I totally agree with that.
I think that I don't know if the scoping subcommittee would be Brown Act or not, but ultimately, I think we should have a subcommittee that receives some staff time, where thought is put into an agenda, where it's published in advance, where you receive the material several days in advance, and so that we know when we go into a meeting that it's worth your time, and also that people are prepared and not just reading the documents in front of the other person at the meeting. So I think the staff resources that a Brown Act subcommittee generates are probably good.
I think they're good, but we have to be respectful of the situation that we're in too, as far as economic and where we're at right now. So I think, starting it as an ad hoc committee, moving it into a standing committee and having public access, I think really the process that I would rather see is start as ad hoc, figure out what it is, figure out which members of CSCC are going to be on that, because we're in a pretty tough fiscal situation right now.
So Mayor Harvey, sorry, I couldn't see you there. So I guess here's my recommendation to council, would be create a council scoping subcommittee. One thing I think that there are standing committees that have been put in place historically by the city, that there is no what I'll call charter. There's not a description of what the committee should be doing. There's not a scoping. And then new staff come in and it's really hard. Well, what was this going to cover? Did it mean to cover this or not? Was the audit committee all finance or just the audit? It's those types of things. I think if the council, I'm hearing a pleasure for the council of wanting to have a standing committee that would be kind of 2 members of the council, 2 members of CSCC, with the environmental sustainability coordinator, putting together a structured agenda. And really what this is it's going to be kind of a report on the activities that staff is doing, updates, connecting. Now, whether that's quarterly or 3 times a year, I think there's a little bit of flexibility. How often is the CSCC meeting? Remember, as a small city, we are very fortunate. I appreciate council's leadership and support. We came forward to add a half-time position. We just found some additional funding to help support the position through with the SB 1383 with the garbage rates that you approved. So you have made a commitment a year ago, and you're continuing to make a commitment to have a staff position, which probably 50% of the cities do not have in environmental sustainability. So I think you've done a lot of great work here. I think it'd be good to have a kind of scope this right. My recommendation would be in the resolution, take out kind of the language that says there'll be a subcommittee, because you're going to come back and bring what I would call a charter, kind of a scope of what that standing committee is going to do. And then you can describe, and it can have greater details about what is the scope and role and duties of that standing committee.
So, Mr. Mayor, could I ask Travis? May I ask Travis a question? So the purpose of the resolution, what is the purpose of the resolution? I mean, I understand the language, the seriousness of it, but what is the purpose? Because having a resolution, that means you're resolute in getting a conclusion. That's how it feels to me.
Well, my interpretation of it is that it's a declaration by the city council going on record that they state, yes, there is an emergency, and here are some actions and some goals that we're looking at going forward with. And it sets a framework, because within these goals, there will be specific reports and actions, but it sets forth from like the 10,000 foot, here are the goals that we want. There are some specific actions in there when it refers to the subcommittee and the general plan and so forth. It sort of is a little bit of a mixture of specific goals and a couple action items.
Right.
I think Kathy's comments about having a scoping committee makes sense. Let's figure out exactly what the goals are, the parameters are, what we're working for with this committee, and then move towards a standing committee that is publicly noticed and has a approved agenda and has room for public comment for the rest of it. So I think those are the steps that we should take. We should get this subcommittee scope this year, and then move into either quarterly or, I don't know how you say, 3 times a year, in a quarterly one-word way. Trichromally.
Triannual.
Triannually. So I think that's the steps that we should take.
So that would, in this, with this plan, then I would be comfortable with removing the references of the committee from this resolution, if it is in fact a separate plan. And so that would include the third, on page 3 of the resolution, the third paragraph, be it resolved that the city of Sonoma will develop a climate emergency subcommittee. And then number 4, it references the subcommittee again. And then take those 2 proposed changes off of my list.
Great. All right. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Agramonte.
Aye.
Councilmember Cook.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Henley.
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington.
Aye.
Mayor Harvey.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
David Storr has appeared.
Sorry, and does council, do you want to make an appointment to the ad hoc scoping committee now?
Well, Matt, right?
What?
You're one of the people on the ad hoc, right?
Yes, I am. Scoping, though, that doesn't mean forever, right? It's just like initially.
I would not want to be on this ad hoc.
I would be interested in being on this committee with
great,
Madeline. For the scoping part, and then for the real committee, I feel like it's probably gonna be Logan.
The ladies have it.
The ladies have it. All right, let's go ahead.
Jeff, do we need a formal vote?
Is there any opposition to the 2 ladies being on this committee?
There's not.
Then that carries.
Thank you.
Thank
If
you.
it's different with Councilmember Harrington referencing us as 2 ladies, then the city attorney is a man referencing us as 2 ladies.
Oh, thank you all so much. I think it's important, I just think it's important.
Item 6.4, discussion, consideration, and possible action to adopt a resolution improving a ballot measure to impose a cannabis business tax and increase the city's appropriations limit for a 4-year period. City manager.
Mayor Harvey, members of council, we had a conversation about this, received broad direction a number of months ago. So again, we're bringing this back to you tonight. I'll turn it to David Storr, our planning director, and then John Abachi from the city attorney's office has been our kind of expert working with us on this. So David, any other items you want to go through, and then I will finalize at the end. David, we can't hear you. Can you put your mic off? Sorry.
Again, that concludes my report. Just again, same joke. Not funny the first time either. Hey, in the staff report, I outlined the federal and state regulatory provisions, the framework for the local ordinances that we've passed last year as that's been developing. Part of that development we discussed as a city to look at the possibility for a cannabis tax. On December the 2nd, HDL made a presentation to council and broad direction was given generally about some ranges for certain activities for a tax. You may recall that the direction was given for us to return so that we could get it on for the election for this November. The resolution that's before you tonight will require a 2/3 vote, which will also be taking an action to approve the ordinance on the ballot that will actually be submitted to the voters. In the staff report tonight, I provided a general overview of the language of the measure at 72 words. As presently constituted, it talks about a tax at 4%. And also, I've also established in the supplemental the ability of the city to tax, that this particular tax will be a general tax and be unrestricted as far as general government operations and work. I've provided a discussion about the GAN limit override, which will be tied directly to the amount of the tax that we receive. And also I've talked about the consolidation of this particular measure having to be with a general election. And again, talk about the provision of providing arguments and rebuttals, a city attorney impartial analysis, and concluding with a CEQA determination that this is not a project under CEQA. The last paragraph of the supplemental talks about suggesting to the council to consider a higher tax rate up to 6%. Currently, as I said, the documents before you, the resolution and the ordinance talk about a 4%, and it connects to the GAN limit of a $200,000 disclosure at that 4%. Should the council wish to go to a ceiling of 6%, always having that discretion to go lower, it would require an amendment to the draft language of the measure itself to include a new GAN limit of 300,000, we think it is. And we believe that we also need to make some minor changes to the ordinance to reference the word section and chapters. There's some internal inconsistencies there to section 5.38290, 0.300, and we have a minor change also to section 5.38.310. So with that, if there's a discussion or a desire of the council to change the document, we would need to return at a later date to make those modifications. But as presently constituted tonight, you do have the ability to adopt the resolution and trigger in motion those changes to put it on the ballot at 4%. And that concludes my presentation. Turn it over back to Kathy.
Yeah, so council, the last time we talked about this, you talked about kind of a threshold of 4% for retail and maybe wanting to set it lower. You know, based on where we, where the city is financially and talking with HDL, some cities had set ceilings like at 10%, which are probably very, very high and too high. But the 4 to 6% is a range that cities have charged again, and with kind of who knows what will happen in future state taxes and or just our own fiscal condition. So what we are just recommending is you might want to consider just setting that ceiling higher. Again, once voters approve it, you have full authority to go lower. It can evolve, but again, our thought is this is going to be in place for probably quite some time. So something to think about. And otherwise, we'd be happy to take your action, take any action.
So,
Do we have questions for council? Go ahead, Madeline.
well, is it a question, I guess? Oh, so I'm seeing here, section 5 ballot question to provide funding for general city services, including but not limited to police, fire, roads, parks, and recreation. So that means that 4% has to be spread throughout that. Is that right? Pardon?
Sorry,
It can be
Kathy.
used for any, it can be used for any general, it is a general tax and it can be used for any general purpose. These are probably, you know, again, 50% of our budget, 55% of our budget goes to police and fire. If you look at parks and roads, there's probably another 10%. So the reality is this is where the preponderance of our budget goes. But again, it's an example. It is clear but not limited to. So these are the types of things that is a general tax and would go to general city services.
Because I mean, for me, it's like a pass through. It's going to be wherever the money is needed. And I think 6% is good for me. But I think generally, I think it was 4% that was decided. But I think 6% seems to be reasonable. 10%, I think they go to other cities. I don't know. That's just how I feel.
The questions for council? No? All right, move to public comment. Go ahead and open the public comment. No hands raised. We'll bring it back. Latanya, did we have any written public comment?
No, Mayor Harvey, no written public comments.
All right, we'll bring it back to council. And go ahead, Councilmember Cook, first at the gate.
I'll go ahead and start it. I do support this tonight, and I would want to see it at 6% because I do believe that it can be set lower, but having the language at 6% would make more sense because of longevity of what's happening.
Go ahead, Amy.
I don't support setting it at 6%, and I think there's so much feedback from the industry that the overtaxation, especially because of what the state's done, is just killing the industry. And I think especially if we hope for it to be high quality jobs and a lot of the other things we're hoping for, that this would be a hindrance. And just like we super carefully evaluate raising the hotel tax because those are important businesses in our community, I think the same level of scrutiny should be applied here. So I support keeping it at 4% max, setting it after that. And then just like the TOT, if people want to raise it later, which would be appropriate once the businesses are going, maybe, that there's a discussion around that. But I think it's way too easy to say we have a hole to fill and now we're just going to go up to 6%, especially in times like now. And I think the same practice for raising it on other businesses like the TOT is what we should use here. And we should set it closer to what we expect the tax to be.
I agree with that. And I think that, you know, it's going to be a crowded ballot with this is on, and, you know, we out the gate wanted things to be lower. I think 4 is still giving a little bit of wiggle room. And when business is booming, and like TOT, when hotels came and like said that they would support raising it, then we'll do that. But I don't think that we're there yet. And, you know, the state has a lot to figure out with all of its taxes. So I think we should do the fair thing. And, you know, the day will come when there's so much money going that we can raise it and then get more money.
John, I saw you raise your hand. Did you have something you want to say?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So I just wanted to point out this would require a vote of 4. So there will have to be 4 council members who will be in favor of one particular position. If there are any changes, like the 6%, we can read those into the record, but there will have to be a consensus of 4 on all of the aspects of the ordinance and the ballot question.
To put it on the ballot.
Right.
Would there be a vote of 4 required to raise or lower the tax, or is that a simple majority? Because like we've said, we could get 6%, we could ask for 6 or 4%, But then, let's say we set it at 2, we want to go up another 2%. What's the threshold there?
If the measure is adopted, then the tax would be set by either ordinance or resolution, which would only take a majority of the council.
Okay. Madeline, did you have comments?
No.
Okay. Oh, you already made yours.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, on page 7 and 8 of the ordinance in Exhibit A, we do list out the percentages for cultivation, testing labs, retail. We also have distribution and manufacturing, and they all are at different rates. Cultivation is at 4%. We have labs at 2%, retail at 4%, distribution at 3%, manufacturing at 4%. I'm of the opinion that we're talking about retail only going to 6% if that is a question. So if there's no desire to change to 6% on retail, we can leave the other tax rates as they are in the ordinance.
I was just thinking, if 4 is a acceptable number, then it could just be a blanket 4, and the rest could be set by policy.
Discussing with Mr. McPherson, I'll let him talk because there clearly in our discussions was a 7% out of the question as far as tipping people over to go into the bad market, the black market, if you will, versus staying legit at 6%. David, could you address that as to whether we go a standard 6 across the board, or do we kind of have these variable rates?
Yeah, so the ballot question is asking the worst scenario, and that's really where the industry looks at where there are challenges at and what is a tolerance level. The bigger concern in the earlier ages, probably before 2018, was that you didn't have the 25% state tax, and so the 7 to 10 percentages were a tolerance level that they accept. But now with the state requirements, it has changed. The retail, though, tolerance level has been 4 to 6%. Most of the cities have brought their 7 to 10% taxes down in that range of 4 to 6%. And on the retail level, they've been very doable. And I would say 75% of the cities in the state that either have that or development agreement are in that range there. And then one of the things, we do a lot of the audits on a lot of these, is that you can evaluate their performance if they're doing very strong or not, and that determination if you're even going to move it up to 5 or 6%, because if they're doing very, very well, then obviously you want the ability to maybe put it at 5 or 6. But if they're struggling or just sustainable, then you'll have that data and information and make that informed decision on their performance.
So, Mr. Mayor, Mr. McPherson, I guess I didn't understand what you said about the state tax, that it was very high, but what is it?
Yeah, I think the concern of many of your colleagues has been the state taxes. Prop 64 added a 15% excise tax. And then, of course, the retail right now is the only one that's a concern to you because you don't have cultivation, the others that get taxed. But it's an accumulative tax. And I showed you a chart at one time. The goal is to keep it at 30% or low of total cumulative tax with the sales tax, excise tax, and the other activities. And so with a 6% on there, the evaluation that we showed you was slightly under 30%. So you're still in that prevailing rate of the tolerance level. And again, you can assess it starting it at 4% and then evaluate it over time if that is going to be an impact to them based on all the other things that they're having to deal with.
So because of the economy, do you think, the state has any wiggle room with respect to their, the number that they have?
So Prop 64 says that it could be modified by 2/3 vote of the legislators, but they're reluctant to move it down at this time because they're using that funding to actually put back into the program for social equity, enforcement, economic development, some of the other things that the intent of 64 was developed with some of those excise taxes. So they have not done that in the last 2 opportunities they've had.
Okay, thank you.
Well, the state model has proven to be unsuccessful because they have not moved as much of the market as they wanted to by now. But I just wanted to go back to when we first talked about all this. The reason we moved forward on this wasn't that we saw it as some cash cow. It was something that we thought should be a legal business here. So I think 4 is a great place to start, and you can always go back to the voters and move it up when things are stable and successful, and no other business out of the gate gets treated like this.
And I also think it just makes sense to have a uniform policy about these additional taxes on businesses. We don't, set the hotel tax at 20% and then just have the council vote, because we realize it's a serious issue and there's no reason why. It's so analogous. It's no reason why we wouldn't do that here. And I think that's our policy. That's how we handle it. And all of us have voted on hotel taxes, and I just don't see why we would create a special system just for this one type of business.
Yeah, and I think, and we're, to Mr. McPherson brings up that we shouldn't be concerned about the cultivation tax because we don't have cultivators, but that cultivation tax is a direct tax on the product that eventually gets to the stores that we will have, and it's at $9.25 per ounce right now, which is, it could be over 5% depending on how much you sell your product for. And it gets higher the less you sell it for. We have to remember also that this is a medicinal product that many people use for medicine. And I don't like to see additional taxes on that kind of material. I agree with setting it at 4. We can go higher if we need to. I think 30% tax on a new business that has so many additional regulatory struggles and so many additional cash flows, just banking struggles and other issues is fair. And I think going back out to the voters, if we want to go higher, is fine as well. I do remember those conversations, and I think the major goal, as Councilmember Harrington stated, was we want good jobs that are in this industry. We're already requiring them. And we're saying we want a labor peace agreement. We want you to pay high wages. We want you to pay healthcare. We want you to help the community. And they're going to not only be subject to whatever special tax we do, but also our sales tax. And so that's on top of everything else. So it's, we're looking at, 30% in additional taxes. I just think, I think 4% is fair. I think going there at max, and if we want to go back out to the voters, then fine. But no other industry gets treated like this.
Well, you heard me fold. People made a good case. I was just folding.
Are you on team 4 now?
There you go. Or,
Oh, 4.
all right. Well, we get a roll. Do we get a motion?
Kathy, what motion do we need?
Your motion needs to be to adopt a resolution approving a ballot measure to impose cannabis tax, business tax, and increase the city's appropriation limit for a 4-year period, calling, giving notice for a general municipal election to be held on November 3rd, 2020, and finding that pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 1560C3 and 15738B4, the tax is not a project.
And
So moved.
if I could just read the changes into the record for the cleanup edit, since this is the only time they will be before the council, that all references to the word section be changed to chapter in sections 538.290 and 538.300, and as to all such references in section 538.310, with the exception of the first reference to section in the first paragraph.
Including that, so moved.
So are we doing, because I know that there's different amounts in there, are we doing a blanket 4 for everything, or are we keeping the itemized maximums that are in the ordinance?
Yeah, the ordinance currently has, as I said, cultivation at 4%, with retail at 4%, and manufacturing at 4%. Then distribution is 3%, and testing labs are at 2%. That's currently what we've recommended at staff level.
I'm fine with that. Or 4.
Second? Anyone?
Second.
Vote.
Rebecca?
Rebecca.
I'm there. I'm sitting here talking.
Kirk?
Monty?
Aye.
Councilmember Cook?
Aye.
Vice Chair Henley?
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington?
Aye.
Mayor Harvey?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Mayor Harvey, thank you, council, and appreciate the chance just to talk and make sure that's where we landed. And I appreciate you listening and making your final call. Just one quick question, Jeff, if I could go back on the generator ordinance question, is there an ability, since I had not realized that had been advertised, is there an ability to, because we're still in the meeting, to basically continue that to June 29th so we don't need to advertise it again?
Yes.
Okay, so maybe if council would help us with that, just saves time and a little bit of money if we could have an action to take the generator ordinance, which was item
5.1.
5.1, and continue that to June 29th.
Make a motion to continue item 5.1 to June 29th at 6 p.m.
Second.
Councilmember Agramonte?
Aye.
Councilmember Cook?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Henley?
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington?
Aye.
Mayor Harvey?
Yep.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you for that cleanup.
Anything else we got? That's the last item on the agenda. Yep. Do we have councilmember reports and comments? Nope. City manager comments and announcements?
Not at this time, thank you.
City attorney?
Just one comment to confirm an email I sent you earlier today. The public would probably want to know this too. The governor, as you know, issued an executive order giving counties and cities the power to impose eviction moratoria, both on residential and commercial evictions. And that authority expired on May 31. However, on the 29th of May, the governor issued a new order extending that authority until July 28. So the council's eviction moratoria ordinance now will continue until July 28. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions, comments? We're good. We'll move to adjourn. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Thank you.
You guys.
Bye.